The courtroom was silent. Not the kind of silence that comes from respect. This was different, heavier, the kind that presses against your chest and makes it hard to breathe. Every seat was filled. Reporters lined the back wall, cameras ready, pens poised over notebooks. Outside, crowds had gathered. Since dawn, holding signs, chanting slogans, demanding justice or mercy, depending on which side of the argument they stood. But inside, in that moment, there was only stillness. At the center of it all sat a 12-year-old girl. Her name was Emma Calloway, small for her age, dark hair pulled back into a ponytail, pale skin that hadn't seen much sun in the 8 months since her arrest. She wore a white blouse that looked too big on her, sleeves rolled up to her elbows. Her hands rested on the table in front of her, fingers interlaced, perfectly still. She didn't cry. She didn't fidget. She didn't look at the jury. She just stared straight ahead. The judge, a man named Harold Winters, 63 years old, 30 years on the bench, cleared his throat. His voice was steady, practiced, but those who knew him said his hand shook slightly as he held the paper. The jury has reached a verdict? A rustle moved through the room like wind through dry leaves. Emma's mother, sitting 3 rows back, let out a small broken sound. Her lawyer, a man named Douglas Brennan, placed a hand on Emma's shoulder. She didn't react. The jury foreman stood, a woman in her 50s, a schoolteacher. From the next town over. She had cried during deliberations, they said, but now her face was stone. In the matter of the state versus Emma Calloway, on the charge of first-degree murder, we the jury find the defendant guilty. The room erupted. Shouts, gasps. Someone screamed. Someone else cheered. The judge's gavel came down hard, again and again, but the noise didn't stop. It swelled, filled every corner, bounced off the wood-paneled walls. Emma didn't move. Her lawyer leaned down, whispered something in her ear. She nodded once, barely. Her mother collapsed in the gallery, held up by 2 women on either side. A reporter near the door was already on his phone, speaking rapidly, urgently. Judge Winters called for order. It took nearly a minute for the chaos to settle. The defendant will rise for sentencing. Douglas Brennan helped Emma to her feet. She stood no taller than his elbow. Her face remained blank, unreadable. Some said it was shock. Others said it was something else, something darker. The judge looked at her for a long moment. Later, in an interview, he would say that was the hardest part. Looking into the eyes of a child and delivering a sentence no child should ever hear. Emma Calloway, he said slowly, you have been found guilty of the brutal murder of your grandmother, Margaret Calloway. This court recognizes the severity and premeditated nature of this crime. Therefore, it is the decision of this court that you be sentenced to death by lethal injection, to be carried out when you reach the age of 18. The courtroom exploded again. Emma's mother screamed. The sound was raw, animalistic. Douglas Brennan argued something, his voice lost in the roar. Security moved toward the defendant's table. And Emma? Emma Calloway blinked once. Twice. Then she turned her head just slightly and looked directly at the cameras. Her expression didn't change. She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She didn't plead. She just looked. And in that moment, millions of people watching from their living rooms, their offices, their phones, saw the same thing the jury had seen. The same thing the prosecution had built their entire case around. A child. But not quite. Something was missing. Some spark of innocence. Some flicker of humanity that should have been there. Or so they said. The headlines wrote themselves that night. Killer child. Sentenced to death. 12-year-old shows no remorse for grandmother's murder. America's youngest monster. The case became a lightning rod. Talk shows debated it. Psychologists analyzed it. The country split down the middle. Some demanding the sentence be carried out, others calling it barbaric, but very few people asked the question that mattered most. What if they got it wrong? 3 years later, a documentary filmmaker named Aaron Fletcher sat in a coffee shop in Oak Hollow, California, flipping through a worn file folder. He didn't believe Emma Calloway was innocent, he just wanted to tell. A good story. And if there was one thing Aaron knew, it was that good stories sold. He drained his coffee, closed the folder, and made a call. "Yeah, it's me. I'm going in. Let's see what we find." What he found would change everything. He made documentaries that cut deep, the kind that left people uncomfortable in their seats, questioning everything they thought they knew. His last film exposed corruption in a small-town police department. The one before that unraveled a decades-old cold case everyone had forgotten. But Emma Calloway? That was different. Everyone already knew her story. Or thought they did. The footage was everywhere. The trial had been televised, dissected, replayed endlessly. The image of that 12-year-old girl standing emotionless as her death sentence was read had become iconic. A symbol, a cautionary tale. Aaron had watched it like everyone else, and like most people, he'd felt something close to disgust. A child who could kill her own grandmother in cold blood, who could stand there without a tear, without a tremor. That wasn't normal. That wasn't human. But 6 months ago, something changed. Aaron received an email. No subject line, just a single sentence. "They didn't tell you everything about Emma Calloway." Attached was a single document, a police report, one that had never been entered into evidence. Aaron almost deleted it. Conspiracy theories about the case flooded the internet daily. Everyone had an opinion, a theory, a smoking gun that proved innocence or guilt depending on which echo chamber you lived in. But something made him open it, and what he read made him pause. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a confession or a bombshell. It was mundane, actually. A statement from a neighbor who claimed to have seen someone else near the Calloway house the night of the murder. Someone who wasn't Emma. The statement had been taken, filed, and apparently forgotten. Aaron made a few calls, tracked down the neighbor. She was still alive, still living 2 doors down from where Margaret Calloway had died. Her name was Diane Pruitt, a retired nurse, 71 years old. When Aaron knocked on her door, she didn't seem surprised. "I wondered when someone would come," she said quietly. They sat in her living room, surrounded by photographs of grandchildren and ceramic figurines. Diane made tea, neither of them drank. "I told them what I saw," she said. "That night, I couldn't sleep, I never can, really. And I was looking out my window around 11. I saw someone walking up to Margaret's house. It wasn't Emma. Too tall. Wrong build." Aaron leaned forward. "Did you tell the police?" "Of course I did. An officer came the next." "Officer?" "Day took my statement, said they'd look into it." She shook her head slowly. "No one ever came back, and when the trial happened, they never called me. I thought maybe I was wrong. Maybe I'd seen something else. But I wasn't wrong." "Why didn't you come forward?" Aaron asked. "Go to the press, the defense, anyone?" Diane's hands trembled slightly as she set down her teacup. "Because by then, everyone had already decided she was guilty, and I'm just an old woman who lives alone. Who would believe me?" Aaron left that house with more questions than answers. He started digging, not with an agenda, not trying to prove innocence. He just wanted to know what else had been left out, what other pieces of the puzzle had been conveniently ignored. He found more than he expected. A toxicology report on Margaret Calloway that showed unusually high levels of prescription sedatives in her system, medication she wasn't prescribed, a timeline that didn't quite add up. Emma had called 911 at 11:47 p.m. The coroner estimated time of death between 10:30 and 11 p.m., but Emma's school records showed she had volleyball practice until 9:45 p.m., and 3 teammates confirmed she'd been there. Even driving straight home, she couldn't have arrived before 10:15 p.m. That left at most 45 minutes. Margaret Calloway had been struck multiple times, dragged from the living room to the bedroom, and the house had been ransacked. All in 45 minutes by a 12-year-old girl who weighed 93 pounds. Aaron sat in his apartment, surrounded by files, photographs, transcripts. He rubbed his eyes, exhausted. His producer, a woman named Kelly Chen, had been skeptical from the start. "You really think you're going to find something a jury didn't?" she'd asked. "I don't." "No," Aaron admitted. "But I think we owe it to ourselves to look." Now, weeks into the research, Aaron wasn't sure what he believed anymore. He picked up a photograph from the trial. Emma Calloway, small and pale, sitting at the defendant's table. Her eyes looked empty in the photo, hollow. But was that guilt? Or was it something else? Trauma, shock, fear. Aaron's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "If you keep digging, you'll find what they buried. But be careful. Some people want it to stay buried." He stared at the message for a long moment. Then he took a screenshot, saved the number, and typed back, "Who is this?" No response. Aaron set the phone down and looked back at the files spread across his desk. Somewhere in this mess was the truth. He just had to find it. And maybe, just maybe, the story he wanted to tell wasn't the one he thought it was. The next morning, Aaron drove to Oak Hollow for the first time. It was a small town, the kind that looked like it belonged on a postcard. Tree-lined streets, neat houses with white picket fences, a main street with mom-and-pop shops that still somehow survived. But underneath the charm, Aaron could feel something else, a tension, a wound that hadn't healed. He parked outside the old Calloway house. It had been sold twice since the murder. The current owners had painted it a soft yellow, planted new flowers in the garden. But everyone in town still knew what had happened there. Aaron stood on the sidewalk, staring at the house, trying to picture that night. A 74-year-old woman, her granddaughter, and something that went horribly, violently wrong. Or did it? He pulled out his phone and called Douglas Brennan, Emma's original defense attorney. The call went to voicemail. Aaron had tried, reaching him a dozen times. Brennan had refused every interview request, declined to comment for every documentary, every podcast, every journalist who'd come looking. But Aaron wasn't giving up. He left another message. "Mr. Brennan, this is Aaron Fletcher. I know you've heard from me before. I'm not looking to exploit this case. I just want to understand what happened. If there's even a chance Emma Calloway is innocent, don't you think someone should know? Call me back, please." He hung up. A woman walking her dog passed by, glanced at him, then quickly looked away. Aaron could feel it, the weight of this town's collective memory. The shame, the anger, the certainty. Everyone here knew Emma Calloway was guilty, but Aaron was starting to wonder if anyone had actually looked for the truth. He took one last look at the house, then got back in his car. His next stop was the Oak Hollow Police Department. He had questions, and someone was going to answer them. The Oak Hollow Police Department was a small brick building on Maple Street, surrounded by oak trees that gave the town its name. Aaron pushed through the glass doors and approached the front desk. A young officer looked up. "Can I help you?" "I'm hoping to speak with someone about the Calloway case," Aaron said. "I'm a documentary filmmaker. I sent several emails." "We don't comment on closed cases," the officer said automatically. "Especially that one." Aaron expected that. "I understand. I'm not looking for official comment. Just background, context, anything that might help me understand what happened." The officer's expression didn't change. "You and about 100 other people. The answer's still no." Aaron nodded slowly. "Can you at least tell me who the lead detective was?" A pause. Then, "Detective Raymond Kovac. He retired 2 years ago. Do you have contact information?" "No." Aaron smiled politely. "Thanks for your time." He left the building and sat in his car, pulling up his laptop. Raymond Kovac. It took less than 10 minutes to find an address. The detective lived on the outskirts of town, a modest ranch house with a vegetable garden out front. Aaron drove over, rehearsing what he'd say. When Kovac opened the door, Aaron was struck by how tired he looked. Mid-60s, gray hair, deep lines around his eyes. The kind of face that had seen too much. Detective Kovac? Just Ray. Now, the man said. And if you're here about Emma Calloway, the answer's no. I'm not asking you to defend the conviction, Aaron said quickly. I'm just trying to understand the family, who they were before all this happened. Ray studied him for a moment. Then, surprisingly, he stepped aside. 5 minutes. Aaron followed him into a cluttered living room. Sports memorabilia covered the walls. A half-finished crossword puzzle sat on the coffee table. Margaret Calloway, Ray said, sitting down heavily. Everyone in town loved her. Volunteered at the church, organized bake sales, helped anyone who needed it. That's what made it so hard to accept, that her own granddaughter could do that to her. What about Emma? Aaron asked. What was she like before? Ray's expression darkened. Quiet kid. Kept to herself. Teacher said she was smart but distant. Didn't have many friends. Was there a tension between her and her grandmother? Not that anyone saw, but Margaret was raising her. Emma's mother, Margaret's daughter Linda, was in and out of rehab, pills mostly. Margaret had custody for about 4 years. Aaron made notes. What about Emma's father? Never in the picture, left. When Emma was a baby. So it was just Emma and Margaret. Ray nodded, and from the outside everything looked fine. Margaret seemed devoted. Emma seemed, well, like any other kid, I guess. But, Aaron pressed. Ray hesitated. Look, I shouldn't be telling you this. I'm not recording, Aaron said. This is just background. A long silence. Then Ray leaned forward. Margaret had called the station twice in the 6 months before she died. Noise complaints from neighbors. Loud arguments coming from the house late at night. We sent someone over both times. Margaret said everything was fine. Just the TV too loud. Did you believe her? I didn't have a reason not to. Ray's jaw tightened. But looking back, I don't know. Maybe we should have looked closer. What do you think they were arguing about? No idea. Margaret never said, and Emma sure as hell didn't tell us. Aaron shifted. Forward. Can I ask you something, off the record? Ray waited. Do you think Emma did it? The detective's face went still. When he spoke, his voice was quieter. The evidence said she did. The jury said she did. That's all that matters. But do you think she did? Ray stood up abruptly. Your 5 minutes are up. Aaron didn't push. He stood, handed Ray his card. If you think of anything else, please call me. Ray took the card but didn't look at it. You're wasting your time. That girl killed her grandmother. The system worked. Leave it alone. But as Aaron walked to his car, he couldn't shake the feeling that Ray's words didn't match the look in his eyes. Aaron's next stop was the high school. Emma had been in 7th grade when it happened. He wanted to talk to her teachers, her classmates, anyone who'd known her. But the principal, a stern woman named Dr. Helen Marsh, wasn't cooperative. This school has moved on from that tragedy, she said firmly. Our students don't need to be reminded of it, and I won't allow you to harass them. I'm not trying to harass anyone, Aaron said. I just want to understand who Emma was. She was a murderer, Dr. Marsh said. Coldly. That's all you need to know. Aaron left empty-handed. But as he walked to his car, a voice called out, Hey, you're that documentary guy, right? Aaron turned. A young woman, maybe 19 or 20, stood near the bike racks. She had dyed purple hair and wore a hoodie with a local band's. Go. I'm Aaron Fletcher, and you are? Becca, I was in Emma's grade. We had English together. Aaron's pulse quickened. Did you know her well? Becca shrugged. Not really, nobody did. She was kind of invisible, you know. But she wasn't, I don't know, she wasn't weird or anything, just quiet. Did she ever talk about her grandmother? Once, Becca said slowly. We had to write an essay about someone we admired. Emma wrote about her grandmother. I remember because the teacher read part of it out loud. It was actually really sweet. She talked about how her grandma taught her to bake. Cookies, how she always made her feel safe. Aaron frowned. Safe from what? I don't know, she didn't say. Do you think Emma could have killed her? Becca was quiet for a long moment. Honestly, I didn't think so. Not back then. But after the trial, after everything that came out, I guess you never really know people. What came out? You know, the stuff about her being emotionless, cold, how she didn't cry when they arrested her, how she just sat there during the trial like it didn't even matter. Becca shifted uncomfortably. That's not normal, right? Trauma affects people. Differently, Aaron said carefully. Yeah, maybe. Becca looked away. Or maybe some people are just born wrong. She walked away before Aaron could respond. That evening, Aaron sat in his motel room, reviewing footage he'd shot throughout the day. His phone rang. Unknown number. Aaron Fletcher. Mr. Fletcher, this is Douglas Brennan. Aaron sat up straight. Mr. Brennan, thank you for calling me back. I shouldn't be, Brennan said. His voice was rough, strained. But your message, you said something about Emma being innocent. I think there are questions that were never answered. Aaron said carefully. There are always questions, Brennan replied. That doesn't mean the verdict was wrong. Do you believe it was right? Silence. Mr. Brennan? Meet me tomorrow, Brennan said finally. 2 o'clock, Riverside Park. Come alone. I will. But can I ask? The line went dead. Aaron stared at his phone. Douglas Brennan had defended Emma Calloway. He'd stood beside her through the entire trial. And now, 3 years later, he was willing to talk. That meant something. Aaron opened his laptop and pulled up trial transcripts, searching for Brennan's closing argument. He found. Read it? And felt something cold settle in his stomach. Brennan hadn't argued innocence. He'd argued for mercy, for understanding, for leniency based on Emma's age. But he'd never said she didn't do it. Why? Aaron looked at the stack of files on his desk. Somewhere in here was the answer. He just had to keep digging. The park was nearly empty when Aaron arrived. Douglas Brennan sat on a bench near the river, feeding ducks from a paper bag. He was older than Aaron expected, late 60s, silver hair, wire-rimmed glasses. He wore a wrinkled blazer over a faded polo shirt. He looked like a man carrying weight he couldn't set down. Mr. Brennan, Aaron said, approaching carefully. Brennan glanced up. Sit. Aaron sat. For a moment, neither spoke. The river moved slowly beside them, sunlight dancing on the surface. I shouldn't have taken that case, Brennan said finally. I knew it the moment I walked into that interrogation room and saw her sitting there, 12 years old, looking at me like I was supposed to fix everything. Why did you take it? Because someone had to. Brennan crumpled the empty bag. And because I thought I could win. But you didn't argue she was innocent. Brennan's jaw tightened. No, I didn't. Why not? Because I couldn't. He turned to Aaron, and there was something haunted in his eyes. You want to know what happened that night? I'll tell you. But you're not going to like it. Aaron pulled out his phone. Can I record this? No. Aaron put the phone away. Okay, I'm listening. Brennan took a breath. Margaret Calloway died on October 14th around 10:45 p.m. Emma called 911 at 11:47. That's over an hour gap. When the police arrived, they found Margaret in the bedroom. She'd been struck repeatedly with a heavy object, a marble. Bookend from the living room. There was blood spatter on the walls, defensive wounds on her hands. Signs of a struggle. Aaron knew all this. It had been in every news report. Where was Emma? Sitting in the kitchen, calm, no blood on her clothes, no visible injuries. She told the officers she'd come home from volleyball practice, found her grandmother on the floor, and called for help. That matches her timeline, Aaron said. It does. But here's what doesn't match. Brennan leaned forward. Emma's fingerprints were on the bookend. Her DNA was under Margaret's fingernails. And when they searched her room, they found Margaret's jewelry hidden in a shoebox under her bed. Aaron felt his stomach drop. That wasn't in the media. No. The prosecution kept some details sealed. Didn't want to taint the jury pool more than necessary. Brennan's voice was bitter. Not that it mattered. So you're saying she did it? I'm saying the evidence pointed to her, overwhelmingly. Brennan rubbed his face. But there were problems. Problems I couldn't get the jury to see. Like what? Like the blood spatter. The forensic analyst said the pattern was consistent with someone at least 5'6". Emma was 4'11". They ignored it. Said she could have been standing on something. Aaron made mental notes. What else? The timeline. Emma left practice at 9:45. 3 teammates saw her leave. The drive home was 22 minutes. So she arrives around 10:07, give or take. Margaret died around 10:45. That's 38 minutes. Enough time, Aaron said. For a grown man, maybe, but for a 90-pound 12-year-old to overpower a woman, strike her multiple times, drag her to another room, ransack the house, clean herself up, and then calmly call 911, it didn't add up. Did you argue that? Of course I did. The jury didn't care. They saw a child who didn't cry, didn't show remorse, didn't react the way they thought she should. To them, that was proof enough. Aaron hesitated. Did Emma ever tell you what happened? Brennan was quiet for a long time. She told me she came home and found her grandmother dead. She said she didn't know who did it. She said she was scared, so she hid the jewelry because she thought whoever killed Margaret might come back for it. Did you believe her? I wanted to. Brennan's voice cracked slightly. God, I wanted to. But her story had holes. Big ones. Like why she waited over an hour to call 911. She said she was in shock, scared, confused. But the operator's recording, Emma sounded completely calm. No panic, no fear, just flat. Aaron felt a chill. What do you think happened? Brennan stood, paced. A few steps. I think someone killed Margaret Calloway. I think Emma was there or arrived shortly after. And I think she either saw who did it, or she knows more than she's saying. But you don't think she swung that bookend? No, Brennan said quietly. I don't. Then why didn't you fight? Harder? Brennan spun around, anger flashing across his face. You think I didn't fight? I tore apart the prosecution's timeline. I brought in expert witnesses. I showed the jury that Emma physically couldn't have done what they claimed. And you know what the prosecutor did? Aaron waited. He put Emma on the stand. Aaron's eyes widened. She testified. For all of 6 minutes, he asked her 3 questions. Did you love your grandmother? She said yes. Did you kill your grandmother? She said no. Then why were your fingerprints on the murder weapon? She didn't answer, just stared at him, silent. Brennan shook his head. That silence destroyed her. The jury saw a child who couldn't or wouldn't defend herself, and they filled in the blanks with the worst possible story. Why didn't she answer? I don't know. I asked her afterward. She just said, they wouldn't believe me. Anyway, Aaron felt a knot forming in his chest. What happened to her after the sentencing? She's in a juvenile facility upstate. Won't be transferred to death row until she turns 18. She has 3 years left. Brennan's voice dropped. 3 years before they kill her for something I don't think she did. Have you visited her? Once, about 6 months after the trial. Brennan looked away. She didn't want to see me, said I'd already done enough. Silence settled between them. Mr. Brennan, Aaron said carefully, if you don't think she did it, who do you think did? Brennan reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. He handed it to Aaron. It was a photocopy of a police report, the one Aaron had already seen, Diane Pruitt's statement about seeing someone near the house. I tried to get this into evidence, Brennan said. The judge ruled it inadmissible, too vague, too unreliable. But I know Diane, she's not a liar. So someone else was there that night. Yes. Who? Brennan's expression darkened. That's what you need to find out. Aaron looked at the report again. His mind raced. Is there anything else, anything that was kept out? The trial? Brennan hesitated. Then he reached into his other pocket and pulled out a small USB drive. "Audio recording," he said, "from Emma's interrogation. The police recorded everything, but only certain parts were played in court. What's on the rest?" "Listen to it," Brennan said, "and pay attention to what the detective asks. More importantly, pay attention to what he doesn't ask." Aaron took the drive. "Why are you giving this to me?" "Because I failed that girl," Brennan said, his voice breaking. "I stood in that courtroom and I let them sentence a child to death, and I've lived with that every single day since. If there's even a chance you can find something I missed, something that proves she didn't do this." He trailed off. Aaron nodded. "I'll find it." Brennan turned to leave, then stopped. "One more thing. Be careful who you talk to. This case made a lot of people look good. The prosecutor, the police, the judge. If you start poking holes in the verdict, you're going to make enemies. I can handle that. I'm not talking about bad press," Brennan said quietly. "I'm talking about people who have a vested interest in making sure the truth stays buried." He walked away, leaving Aaron alone on the bench. Aaron looked down at the USB drive in his hand. Somewhere on this tiny piece of plastic was a 12-year-old girl's voice, words that had been heard but not listened to. He had to hear them. Back at the motel, Aaron plugged the drive into his laptop. 15 audio files appeared. He opened the first one. Static. Then a voice. Detective Raymond Kovach. October 15th, 2:34 a.m. Interrogation of Emma Calloway, age 12. Present are Detective Kovach, Officer Ramirez, and court-appointed guardian Linda Marsh. A pause. "Emma, can you tell me what happened tonight?" A small voice. Young. Tired. "I came home. Grandma was on the floor. There was blood." "What time did you get home?" "I don't know. After practice." "Did you see anyone else in the house?" Silence. "Emma?" "No." "Are you sure?" Another long pause. "I don't remember." Aaron leaned closer. Something in her voice. Not defiance, not guilt. Fear. "Emma, this is very important. Did you hurt your grandmother?" "No." "Then how did her jewelry end up in your room?" Silence. Aaron's heart pounded. He could hear it in the recording. The moment Emma shut down, Kovach kept pushing, asking the same questions in different ways. But Emma stopped answering. Aaron skipped ahead to the last file, 3 hours into the interrogation. Emma sounded even smaller now, exhausted. "I didn't do it," she whispered. "Then who did?" A long, terrible silence. Then Emma said something that made Aaron's blood run cold. "If I tell you, they'll come for me too." Aaron replayed the audio file 3 times. "If I tell you, they'll come for me too." Each time, the words hit harder. Emma's voice wasn't cold or calculating. It was terrified. But when Aaron searched the trial transcripts for that statement, he found nothing. It had never been mentioned, never entered as evidence, never presented to the jury. Why? Aaron called Detective Kovach. The phone rang 4 times before going to voicemail. "Ray, it's Aaron Fletcher. I have a question about Emma's interrogation. Call me back." He hung up and stared at his laptop screen. Someone had edited that recording, carefully selected which parts the jury would hear, and they'd left out the one moment that suggested Emma might be protecting someone, or afraid of someone. Aaron needed to know who made that decision. He pulled up information on the prosecution team. The lead prosecutor had been a woman named Victoria Hale, 42 at the time of the trial, ambitious, known for her aggressive courtroom tactics. She'd built her career on high-profile convictions. The Emma Calloway case had made her a household name. 6 months after the verdict, she'd been appointed district attorney, the youngest in the county's history. Aaron found her office number and called. "District Attorney's office. I'd like to request an interview with Ms. Hale regarding the Emma Calloway case." A pause. "Ms. Hale doesn't grant interviews about closed cases. I'm a documentary filmmaker. I just have a few questions about—" "Ms. Hale doesn't grant interviews, thank you." Click. Aaron wasn't surprised, but he also wasn't giving up. That afternoon, Aaron attended a city council meeting where Victoria Hale was scheduled to speak about criminal justice reform. The irony wasn't lost on him. Hale was polished, confident, charismatic. She spoke about the importance of protecting communities, holding offenders accountable, ensuring justice for victims. When she finished, reporters swarmed her. Aaron waited until the crowd thinned, then approached. "Ms. Hale, Aaron Fletcher. I'm working on a documentary about the Emma Calloway case." Hale's smile didn't waver, but her eyes went cold. "That case is closed." "I understand. I just have questions about the evidence presented at trial." "All evidence was thoroughly reviewed and deemed admissible by the court." "What about evidence that wasn't presented?" Aaron pressed. "Like Emma's statement during interrogation where she said, 'I'm not discussing this with you,'" Hale said sharply. Her smile vanished. "That girl was convicted by a jury of her peers based on overwhelming evidence. If you're trying to create some revisionist narrative for clicks and views, you're wasting your time. I'm trying to find the truth. The truth is that a child brutally murdered her grandmother. The jury saw the evidence. They heard the testimony. They made their decision." Hale's voice dropped. "And if you continue harassing people involved in that case, I'll make sure you're dealt with accordingly." She walked away before Aaron could respond. A threat, barely veiled. Aaron's instincts sharpened. People didn't threaten you unless they had something to hide. Aaron spent the next 2 days digging into Victoria Hale's career. The Calloway case had been her biggest trial to date. Before that, she'd handled mostly drug offenses and theft. Nothing high profile. Nothing that would launch her into the district attorney's office. But the Calloway case changed everything. Media. Coverage had been relentless. Every day of the trial was front-page news. Hale had given interviews, appeared on national television, positioned herself as a champion for victims and a crusader for justice. She'd painted Emma as a sociopath, cold, manipulative, dangerous. She'd brought in a psychologist who testified that Emma showed signs of antisocial personality disorder, lack of empathy, absence of remorse, predatory behavior. The psychologist had met with Emma exactly twice. Each session lasted 45 minutes. Aaron found the psychologist's name, Dr. Martin Schaffer. He was semi-retired now, living in Arizona. Aaron called him. "Dr. Schaffer, my name is Aaron Fletcher. I'm researching the Emma Calloway case." A long pause. "I have nothing to say about that. I'm not questioning your assessment. I just want to understand your methodology." "My assessment was based on standard psychological evaluation protocols. Everything was documented in my report." "Did you consider alternative explanations for Emma's behavior? Trauma, shock, dissociation?" "Of course I did, but the evidence didn't support those conclusions." "You met with her twice," Aaron said. "Is that enough time to diagnose a personality disorder in a child?" Schaffer's tone turned defensive. "I was asked to provide an evaluation based on available information. I did exactly that." "Did the prosecution tell you what conclusions they wanted you to reach?" "That's an insulting question." "It's a reasonable one." Schaffer exhaled sharply. "This conversation is over." "Wait." The line went dead. Aaron sat back, frustrated. He opened his laptop and reviewed the trial transcripts again, focusing on Schaffer's testimony. The prosecution had asked leading questions, framed everything to paint Emma in the worst possible light. "Doctor, in your professional opinion, does Emma Calloway show signs of being a danger to others?" "Yes." "Does she exhibit behavior consistent with violent offenders?" "She exhibits certain markers, yes." The defense had tried to cross-examine, but Schaffer held firm. And the jury, already convinced by the physical evidence, took his testimony as confirmation. Emma wasn't just guilty. She was dangerous, irredeemable, a monster. Aaron closed the laptop and rubbed his eyes. This was what Victoria Hale had done. She'd taken a frightened 12-year-old and turned her into something the public could hate, something they could condemn without guilt, and it had worked. Aaron's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Stop digging. You don't know what you're dealing with." Aaron's pulse quickened. He texted back, "Who is this?" No response. He tried, calling the number. It went straight to a generic voicemail. Aaron stood, paced his motel room. Someone was watching. Someone knew what he was doing. And they wanted him to stop. That meant he was getting close to something. He pulled up his notes, organized everything he'd learned so far. The evidence against Emma. Fingerprints on the murder weapon, DNA under Margaret's fingernails. Jewelry found in her room. No alibi for the time of death. The problems with the case. Blood spatter inconsistent with Emma's height. Timeline didn't fit. Diane Pruitt saw someone else at the house. Emma's. Interrogation statement edited. Emma said, "If I tell you, they'll come for me too. The people who benefited from the conviction. Victoria Hale. Career advancement, Detective Kovac. High-profile case closure, Dr. Schaffer. Expert witness fees. Media attention." Aaron stared at the list. The pieces were there, but they didn't form a complete picture yet. He needed more. That evening, Aaron received an email. No subject line. The sender was listed as a friend. The body of the email contained a single sentence. "If you want to know what really happened, look at Margaret's finances." Attached was a PDF, bank statements, Margaret Calloway's accounts from the year before her death. Aaron opened the file. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Social Security deposits, utility payments, grocery store charges. But then he noticed something. Large withdrawals, every month, always in cash. Always the same amount, $2,500. Aaron counted. Over the course of a year, Margaret had withdrawn more than $30,000. Where did it go? There was no record of large purchases, no medical bills, no explanation, just cash, disappearing into nothing. Aaron's mind raced. Margaret Calloway had been a retired school teacher. She lived modestly. Why was she withdrawing that much money, and why in cash? Aaron thought about Emma's words during interrogation. "If I tell you, they'll come for me too." Come for her. Not him. Not them. Singular. Someone specific. Someone Emma was afraid of. Someone who had a reason to want Margaret dead. Aaron grabbed his phone and called Douglas Brennan. "Did you know Margaret was withdrawing large amounts of cash before she died?" Brennan was silent. Then, "No, that never came up." "Why not?" "Because the prosecution focused on Emma's motive, wanting the jewelry, resenting her grandmother's strictness. They never looked deeper." "What if Margaret was paying someone?" Aaron said. "What if that's why she died? Paying someone for what? I don't know. But someone knew about this money. Someone wanted it to stop. And Emma knew who." Brennan's voice was strained. "If that's true, why didn't Emma say something?" "Because she was scared," Aaron said. "And maybe because she thought no one would believe her anyway." Brennan exhaled slowly. "What are you going to do?" "Find out who Margaret was paying. And why." "Aaron," Brennan said quietly, "be careful. If someone killed Margaret to cover this up, they won't hesitate to protect themselves again." "I know." Aaron hung up and looked at the bank statements again. Somewhere in these numbers was the answer. He just had to follow the money. Aaron spent the next morning at the county records office pulling every financial document connected to Margaret Calloway. Tax returns, property records, insurance policies. He found something interesting in her will. Margaret had updated it 6 months before her death. The original version left everything to her daughter, Linda, Emma's mother. But the new version split the estate. Half to Linda, half to someone named Thomas Pruitt. Aaron's heart skipped. Pruitt. The same last name as Diane, the neighbor who'd seen someone at the house that night. He searched for Thomas Pruitt in the system. Found a marriage certificate from 1987. Diane Pruitt. And Thomas Pruitt. Divorced in 2003. Thomas still lived in Oak Hollow, just 4 blocks from the Calloway house. Aaron drove there immediately. The house was small, paint peeling, yard overgrown. An old truck sat in the driveway. Rust eating at the wheel wells. Aaron knocked. The man who answered was in his early 70s, thin, gray stubble covering his jaw. He wore a stained undershirt and looked like he'd just woken up. Thomas Pruitt? Who's asking? Aaron Fletcher. I'm a documentary filmmaker. I'm looking into the Margaret Calloway case. Thomas's expression hardened. I got nothing to say about that. I'm not here to accuse you of anything. I just want to understand your relationship with Margaret. We were friends. That's it. Friends who shared an inheritance? Thomas's jaw tightened. She left me some money in her will. So what? Why? Because she wanted to. Is that is crime? No, Aaron said carefully. But it's unusual. Why would Margaret leave half her estate to a neighbor instead of keeping it all with her daughter? Thomas glanced over his shoulder, then stepped outside, pulling the door shut behind him. Keep your voice down. Is someone else here? That's none of your business. Thomas crossed his arms. Look, Margaret and I knew each other for years. She helped me out when my marriage fell apart. Loaned me money when I was behind on the mortgage. We were close, that's all. Were you at her house the night she died? No. Are you sure? Because your ex-wife says she saw someone. Diane sees a lot of things that aren't there, Thomas snapped. She's been on pills for anxiety for 20 years. You can't trust a word she says. Aaron studied him. You seem defensive for someone who has nothing to hide. I'm not hiding anything, but I'm tired of people like you dredging up the past. That case is over. The girl was convicted. Move on. What if she didn't do it? Thomas's face went cold. Then the jury got it wrong. But that's not my problem. He went back inside and slammed the door. Aaron stood there, mind racing. Thomas. Pruitt had a financial motive. He'd benefited from Margaret's death, and he'd been evasive, defensive, angry. But was that enough? Aaron needed more. He drove back to Diane Pruitt's house. She answered the door with a wary expression. You're back. I need to ask you about your ex-husband. Diane's face paled. Tom, what about him? He was in Margaret's will. Did you know that? She hesitated. I heard something about it, after she died. Were they close? They were friendly. Tom did odd jobs for her sometimes. Fixed her fence, cleaned her gutters. But I didn't think. She trailed a. You didn't think what? Diane looked down. I didn't think she'd leave him anything. They weren't family. Did Tom know about the will before Margaret died? I don't know. Diane, Aaron said gently. The night Margaret was killed, you said you saw someone at her house. Can you describe them? It was dark. I couldn't see details, just a shape, tall, broad shoulders. Could it have been Tom? Diane's hands trembled. I don't know. Did you consider that when you gave your statement to the police? Of course I did, she said, her voice breaking. But Tom was my husband for 16 years. Even after the divorce, I didn't want to believe. I thought maybe I was wrong. Maybe I'd seen a shadow, a tree, something else. But you don't think that anymore? Diane met his eyes. No, I don't. Aaron felt a knot tighten in his chest. Why didn't you say something at the trial? Because no one asked. No one called me to testify. And by then, everyone was so sure it was Emma, I thought, maybe it didn't matter. It mattered, Aaron said quietly. Diane wiped her eyes. Is she still alive? Emma? Yes, she's in a juvenile facility. Does she know that I saw someone? I don't know what she knows. Diane's voice dropped to a whisper. Tell her I'm sorry. Tell her I should have spoken up. Aaron nodded. I will. Back at the motel, Aaron reviewed everything again. Thomas Pruitt had motive. Money. He had opportunity. He lived close by. And Diane had seen someone matching his description at the house. But there was still the physical evidence. Emma's fingerprints on the bookend, her DNA under Margaret's nails, the jewelry in her room. How did that fit? Aaron opened the forensic reports. The bookend had multiple fingerprints. Emma's were on the base. But there were partial prints on the top, the part used to strike Margaret, that were smudged, unreadable. The DNA under Margaret's fingernails was a match to Emma, but the report noted that familial DNA could sometimes be transferred indirectly. And the jewelry. Aaron looked at the inventory list. 3 pieces, a gold necklace, a bracelet, and a ring. But according to Margaret's insurance policy, she owned 6 pieces of valuable jewelry. Where were the other 3? Aaron called Douglas Brennan again. The jewelry found in Emma's room, was that all of Margaret's collection? Brennan paused. I don't know. I assumed so. There were 6 pieces insured, only 3 were found. What are you thinking? I'm thinking someone took the other 3 and planted these in Emma's room to frame her. That's a hell of a theory. But it fits, Aaron said. Thomas Pruitt kills Margaret, takes half the jewelry for himself, plants the rest in Emma's room, creates reasonable doubt for himself and a clear suspect in Emma. You'd need proof. I know. Aaron hung up and stared at his notes. He needed to find that missing jewelry. If Thomas had sold it, there'd be a record. He spent the next 3 hours calling pawn shops, antique dealers, jewelry stores. Nothing. Then on his 16th call, a woman at a small estate jewelry shop in the next county said, "Yeah, I remember those pieces. Came in about 3.5 years ago. Beautiful gold work, Art Deco style." Aaron's pulse quickened. "Who sold them to you?" "I'd have to check my records. Can you hold?" Aaron waited, barely breathing. The woman came back. "Here it is, sold by a Thomas Pruitt. Paid him $12,000. Aaron felt adrenaline surge through him. "Do you still have the pieces?" "No, sorry, sold them within a few months." "Do you have documentation of the transaction?" "I keep everything. Tax purposes. Can you send me copies?" "I'd need a subpoena for that." Aaron thought fast. "What if I came in person? Would you show them to me?" A pause. "I suppose that wouldn't hurt. I'll be there in an hour." Aaron grabbed his keys and ran. The jewelry shop was tucked between a dry cleaner and a nail salon. The owner, a woman named Greta, was in her 60s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She pulled out a worn ledger and flipped to October 2021. There it was. Thomas Pruitt. Address in Oak Hollow. Sold 3 pieces of gold jewelry. Received $12,000 in cash. The date of the sale, October 20th, 2021. 6 days after Margaret's murder. Aaron's hands shook as he took photos of the ledger entry. "Did he say where he got the jewelry?" Aaron asked. "Said it was from a deceased relative. State sale. I didn't ask questions. The pieces were legitimate, no stolen property flags when I ran them." "Did he seem nervous?" Greta thought for a moment. "Actually, yeah. Kept looking over his shoulder. Wanted cash, no check. I remember thinking it was a little odd, but people have their reasons." Aaron thanked her and left. He had it now. Proof that Thomas Pruitt had Margaret's missing jewelry. Proof that he'd sold it days after her death. This was the crack in the case, but it still didn't explain Emma's fingerprints on the murder weapon, or her DNA under Margaret's nails. Aaron needed to talk to someone who could explain how that evidence could have been manipulated or misinterpreted. He needed a forensic expert, and he needed to find out if the police had ever considered Thomas Pruitt as a suspect. Aaron called Detective Kovacs again. This time he answered. What want, Fletcher? I want to know if you ever investigated Thomas Pruitt." Silence. "Ray, why are you asking about Tom?" "Because he benefited from Margaret's death. Because he sold her jewelry 6 days later. Because a witness saw someone at the house that night who matches his description. We looked at everyone," Kovacs said, but his voice was tight. "Tom had an alibi." "What was it?" "He was home. His girlfriend confirmed it." "Did you verify that?" "We didn't have a reason to. Except that he stood to gain thousands of dollars from Margaret's death." Kovacs' voice turned sharp. Emma's prints were on the murder weapon. Her DNA was under the victim's nails. Jewelry was in her room. That's not circumstantial. That's direct evidence. What if someone planted it? Then they did a hell of a job, Kovacs said coldly. Look, I know you want to find some conspiracy here, but sometimes the obvious answer is the right one. Emma Calloway killed her grandmother. Accept it. I can't, Aaron said, because I don't think she did. Kovac hung up. Aaron sat in his car, staring at the phone. The police had tunnel vision from the start. They saw the evidence pointing to Emma and stopped looking. But Aaron wasn't going to stop, because somewhere in this tangled mess of lies and misdirection was a 12-year-old girl who'd been telling the truth all along, and no one had believed her. Aaron's next step was to understand how public opinion had been shaped so decisively against Emma. He started with the news coverage, hundreds of articles, thousands of hours of television. The case had been everywhere: cable news, morning shows, podcasts, YouTube channels. Everyone had an opinion, and almost universally, that opinion was Emma Calloway was guilty, but one name kept appearing more than others. A crime reporter named Brad Clemens who'd covered the case from day one for a local news station. His reports had been picked up nationally, his interviews replayed endlessly. Clemens had practically made a career out of Emma Calloway. Aaron found him still working at the same station now as a senior correspondent. He reached out through official channels and, surprisingly, Clemens agreed to meet. They sat in a coffee shop downtown. Clemens was in his 40s, fit, well-dressed, the kind of polished professionalism that came from years on camera. "I've been expecting someone like you," Clemens said, stirring his coffee. "Every few years someone tries to reopen this case, thinks they'll find something everyone else missed." "And did they?" Aaron asked. "No, because there's nothing to find. Emma Calloway killed her grandmother. That's not opinion, that's fact." "Based on what?" "Based on a jury verdict, based on evidence presented in court, based on months of investigation." Aaron leaned forward. "And based on the story you told." Clemens's smile faded slightly. "I reported the facts." "Did you?" Aaron pulled out his laptop and opened a video file. "This is from your coverage on day 3 of the trial." He turned the screen toward Clemens. On the video, a younger Brad Clemens stood outside the courthouse, microphone in hand. "Today, we heard chilling testimony about Emma Calloway's behavior in the days before the murder. Sources close to the family describe her as cold, detached, and increasingly violent. One unnamed source told this reporter that Emma had threatened her grandmother multiple times, threats that were never reported to authorities." Aaron paused the video. "Who was that unnamed source?" Clemens shifted. "I don't reveal sources. Was there actually a source, or did you make it up to sensationalize the story? That's a serious accusation. Then answer the question." Clemens set down his coffee. "Look, everything I reported was based on information I received. If a source gave me bad information, that's on them, not me." "So you didn't verify it?" "I verified what I could. But in a case like this, you're working on tight deadlines. You report what you have. Even if it's not true." Clemens's jaw tightened. "I never reported anything I didn't believe was true." Aaron pulled up another clip. "This is from week 2. You interviewed a psychologist who claimed Emma showed signs of sociopathy. But that psychologist had never met Emma, never evaluated her. How is that responsible journalism?" "He was an expert giving his professional opinion based on available information. He was giving an opinion designed to support the narrative you were building," Aaron said. "You weren't reporting the case, you were shaping it." Clemens stood abruptly. "I think we're done here." "Sit down," Aaron said quietly. "Please." Something in his tone made Clemens pause. Slowly he sat back. "Down. I'm not trying to attack you," Aaron said. "I'm trying to understand how a 12-year-old girl got convicted in the court of public opinion before the trial even started. And you were a big part of that." Clemens looked away. "I was doing my job." "Were you, or were you doing what would get the most views, the most clicks, the most attention?" Silence. "There's a recording," Aaron said, "from Emma's interrogation. She said, 'If I tell you, they'll come for me too.' That suggests she knew who killed her grandmother. It suggests she was protecting herself, not covering up her own crime. Did you ever report that? I never heard that recording. Because it was buried, edited out, and no one in the media bothered to ask why. Clemens's face had gone pale. What are you saying? I'm saying you helped convict an innocent child, and I think deep down, you know it. Clemens stared at his hands. For a long moment he didn't speak. Then quietly, there was pressure. From who? Everyone. The station wanted ratings. The DA's office wanted a conviction. The public wanted a monster they could hate. He looked up, and there was something hollow in his eyes. I gave them what they wanted. At the cost of the truth. I told myself I was just reporting what I was told, that it wasn't my job to investigate, just to inform. His voice cracked. But you're right. I shaped the narrative. I chose which facts to emphasize, which experts to interview, which sound bites to play. Made her into a monster because that's the story people wanted to hear. Aaron felt a mix of anger and pity. Did you ever meet Emma? Once, at the courthouse. She was being let out after a hearing. I tried to get a comment. She looked right at me and said, "Why won't anyone listen?" Clemens's eyes were wet now. I didn't answer her. I just let them take her away. And then I went on air that night and talked about how she showed no remorse. Why are you telling me this? Because I haven't slept well in 3 years, Clemens said. Because I see her face every time I close my eyes. Because if there's even a chance I helped convict an innocent child. He trailed off. Aaron waited. There's something else, Clemens said finally. Something I never reported. What? About 2 weeks into the trial, I got a call. Anonymous, male voice. He said if I kept digging into certain aspects of the case, specifically Margaret's finances and personal relationships, I'd regret it. Aaron's pulse quickened. Did you report the threat? No. I thought it was just some crank. But then my car got broken into. Nothing was stolen, just my files on the case. All my notes, all my interviews. Gone. When was this? 3 days before the verdict. Aaron's mind raced. Did you tell anyone? I told my editor. He said to let it go, that the trial was almost over anyway. So I did. Do you remember anything specific about the voice, accent, age, anything? Clemens shook his head. Just that he sounded local, like someone from around here. Aaron pulled out his phone and played a brief audio clip, Thomas Pruitt's voice from when he'd answered the door. Does that sound familiar? Clemens listened, his brow furrowed. Maybe. I can't be sure. It was years ago. It wasn't definitive, but it was something. Aaron closed his laptop. If I prove Emma didn't do this, will you help me? Will you go on record about the pressure, the narrative, all of it? Clemens hesitated. Then, yes. If you can prove it, I'll tell the truth. It's the least I owe her. Aaron left the coffee shop with more pieces of the puzzle. The media had been manipulated, possibly threatened. The narrative had been carefully controlled from the beginning. But by who? Victoria Hale had the most to gain. Her career had skyrocketed after the conviction. But would she go so far as to threaten reporters? Or was it Thomas Pruitt, trying to keep attention away from himself? Aaron needed to connect the dots. He drove to the public library and requested archived newspapers from the weeks leading up to the trial. He found something interesting. An article from the Oak Hollow Gazette published 3 days after Margaret's murder. A small piece, barely 2 paragraphs, buried on page 6. Local woman Margaret Calloway found dead. Police investigating. The article mentioned that police were interviewing family members and neighbors. It listed a few names: Linda Calloway, Emma Calloway, Diane Pruitt, and Thomas Pruitt. But in later articles, Thomas's name disappeared entirely. No mention of him being interviewed, no mention of his connection to Margaret, nothing. Aaron cross-referenced with police reports. Thomas had been interviewed. Once. On October 16th, 2 days after the murder, the report was brief. Thomas stated he'd been home the night of the murder. His girlfriend, Shayna Marks, confirmed his alibi. The investigating officer noted, "No reason to suspect involvement. Moving forward with primary suspect." The primary suspect being Emma. Aaron looked up Shayna Marks. Found an address. Drove there immediately. Shayna Marks lived in a small apartment complex on the edge of town. She answered the door in scrubs. She worked as a nurse at the local hospital. Shayna Marks? Yes? My name is Aaron Fletcher. I'm investigating the Margaret Calloway case. Her expression changed. Instantly, guarded, nervous. I don't know anything about that. You gave an alibi for Thomas Pruitt. You said he was with you the night Margaret died. He was. Are you sure? Of course I'm sure. Aaron watched her carefully. What time did he arrive at your place that night? I don't remember. Exactly. It was a long time ago. The police report says you told them he was with you all evening. That's right. But you can't remember what time he arrived? Shayna's jaw tightened. Look, I don't know what you're trying to do, but Tom had nothing to do with that woman's death. Leave us alone. Did he ask you to lie for him? Get out of here before I call the cops. Aaron held up his hands. I'm just trying to find the truth. The truth is that little girl killed her grandmother. Everyone knows it. Now get off my property. She slammed the door. Aaron stood there, heart pounding. Shayna was lying. He could see it in her eyes, hear it in her voice. But proving it was another matter. Back in his car, Aaron sat in silence for a moment, piecing everything together. Thomas Pruitt had a motive, money. He'd sold Margaret's jewelry days after the murder. He'd been seen near the house that night, and his alibi was shaky at best. The media had been manipulated into creating a monster out of Emma. The prosecution had hidden evidence that suggested Emma was afraid of someone. The police had tunnel vision and never seriously investigated anyone else. And now, people were threatening Aaron to stop digging. All of it pointed in one direction. Emma Calloway didn't kill her grandmother, but convincing the world of that was going to be the hard part. Aaron pulled out his phone and made a call. Douglas, it's Aaron. I need to talk to Emma. The juvenile detention facility was 2 hours north, a gray concrete building surrounded by chain-link fences topped with razor wire. Aaron had spent 3 days navigating paperwork, background checks, and bureaucratic roadblocks before finally getting approval for a visit. Douglas Brennan had helped, using his status as Emma's former attorney to expedite the process. But even with approval, Aaron wasn't sure Emma would agree to see him. He sat in the visiting room, a sterile space with white walls, fluorescent lighting, and tables bolted to the floor. A corrections officer stood by the door, arms crossed. Aaron waited. After 10 minutes, a door on the far side opened. Emma Calloway walked in. She was 15 now, but looked younger. Small, thin, shoulders slightly hunched as if trying to make herself even smaller. Her dark hair was longer than in the trial photos, pulled back in a simple ponytail. She wore standard-issue gray clothing that hung loose on her frame, but it was her eyes that struck Aaron most. They were empty, not cold, not angry, just empty, like something inside her had been turned off. She sat down across from him without making eye contact. Emma, my name is Aaron Fletcher. I know who you are, she said quietly. Her voice was flat, emotionless. Mr. Brennan told me you've been asking questions. I'm trying to understand what happened the night your grandmother died. Everyone knows what happened. I killed her. She said it without inflection, like reciting a weather report. Do you believe that? For the first time, Emma looked directly at him. Her eyes weren't empty anymore. They were sharp, assessing, wary. Does it matter what I believe? It matters to me. Why? Because I don't think you did it. Emma's expression didn't change. The jury said I did. 12 people looked at the evidence and decided I was guilty. Who are you to say they're wrong? Someone who's willing to listen. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, people don't listen. They hear what they want to hear. They see what they want to see. Then help me see the truth. Emma looked away. The truth doesn't matter. It never did. Aaron leaned forward slightly. During your interrogation, you said something. You said, "If I tell you, they'll come for me too." What did you mean? Emma's jaw tightened. I don't remember saying that. It's on the recording. Then maybe I was confused, scared. I don't know. Emma, I've talked to people, I've reviewed evidence. I think someone else killed your grandmother. And I think you know who. You're wasting your time. Why won't you defend yourself? Because it doesn't change anything. Her voice cracked, the first real emotion breaking through. Do you think anyone cares? Do you think anyone will believe me now? I've been convicted, sentenced to death. That's not going to change because some documentary guy decides to play detective. It could change if you tell the truth. Emma laughed, a bitter, broken sound. The truth? You want the truth? Fine, I came home that night and found my grandmother dead. There was blood everywhere. I was terrified. I didn't know what to do. So I hid in my room and I waited. And then I called 911 because I didn't know what else to do. Why did you wait over an hour? Because I thought whoever killed her might still be in the house. I thought if I called right away, they'd hear me. So I stayed quiet, and I waited until I couldn't hear anything anymore. Aaron's heart clenched. Did you see who did it? Emma's hands trembled. She clasped them together, knuckles white. No. But you know who it was. I don't. Emma, please, if you know something, tell me. Let me help you. You can't help me. She stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. The corrections officer took a step forward. No one can help me. Don't you understand that? Why not? Because the person who killed her. Because if I say anything. She stopped, breathing hard. They'll kill me too. And no one will care because everyone already thinks I'm a murderer. Aaron felt cold. Who, Emma? Who will kill you? She shook her head violently. I can't say it. Was it Thomas Pruitt? Emma's eyes went wide. Fear flashed across her face. It was, wasn't it? Aaron pressed. He killed your grandmother, and he framed you for it. Stop. He was there that night. A witness saw him. He sold your grandmother's jewelry. He had a motive. Stop! Emma's voice was raw, desperate. You don't understand. If you keep digging, if you say his name, he'll find out, and he'll come after me. He promised he would. Aaron's blood ran cold. He threatened you? Emma sat back down slowly, her whole body shaking. When she spoke again, her voice was barely a whisper. The night I was arrested. After they took me to the station, he was there, outside. I saw him through the window. He looked right at me and She closed her eyes. He made a gesture, like cutting his throat. Did you tell anyone? Who would believe me? Everyone already thought I was guilty. Emma, if he threatened you, that changes everything. It changes nothing, she said, and the emptiness was back in her voice. Because there's no proof. It's my word against his, and we both know whose word matters more. Aaron wanted to argue, wanted to promise he could fix this, but looking at Emma's hollow expression, he understood something terrible. She'd already given up, not because she was guilty, but because she'd learned that innocence didn't matter. Will you let me keep investigating? Aaron asked. Will you let me try to prove what really happened? Emma looked at him for a long moment. Do whatever you want, but don't expect me to hope. I don't have any left. The corrections officer stepped forward. Time's up. Emma stood. She turned to leave, then paused. Mr. Fletcher? Yes? There's a recording. From the night it happened. On my grandmother's phone. She was on a call when it happened. I think she was talking to someone. I tried to tell the police, but they said they searched her phone and there was nothing. Aaron's pulse raced. Do you know who she was talking to? No. But she was scared. I heard her voice from downstairs. She was crying, begging. Someone. And then she screamed. Where is the phone now? The police took it. Evidence. Aaron made a mental note. Thank you, Emma. She nodded once and left without another word. Aaron sat alone in the visiting room, his mind racing. A phone call. Margaret had been on the phone when she was, killed. And that recording had mysteriously disappeared from evidence. This wasn't just negligence, this was deliberate suppression. Someone had buried that recording, and Aaron was going to find it. Back in his car, Aaron called Douglas Brennan. There was a recording on Margaret's phone. A call. She was on when she was killed. Did you know about this? Brennan was silent. No, that was never mentioned in discovery. Because someone made it disappear, we need to get access to the evidence locker. We need to find that phone. Aaron, evidence from a closed case is nearly impossible to access. Without a court order, then we get a court order. On what grounds? You'd need new evidence, something substantial enough to warrant reopening the case. Aaron thought for a moment. What about Thomas Pruitt's alibi? If we can prove it's false, that's grounds. You'd need to get Shayna Marks to... Can't. And from what you told me, she's not going to cooperate. Then we find another way, Aaron said. I'm not letting this go. That night, Aaron reviewed every piece of evidence again, looking for something he'd missed. And he found it. In the crime scene photos, there was a table near the front door. On that table was a cell phone, Margaret's phone. Aaron zoomed in on the photo. The phone's screen was visible, and on that screen was a call log. The image was grainy, but Aaron could make out numbers. He enhanced the photo as much as possible, scribbled down what he could see. The last call Margaret had received came in at 10:31 p.m. Duration, 14 minutes. That meant the call was still active when she died. Aaron cross-referenced the number with public records. It took hours, but he finally found a match. The number belonged to a prepaid cell phone purchased at a convenience store. No hollow, no name attached, no way to trace the owner. But Aaron had an idea. He pulled up surveillance footage requests for the convenience store. Most places kept footage for 30 days before deletion, but some kept it longer for security purposes. It was a long shot, but it was all he had. The next morning, Aaron visited the convenience store. The owner, a tired-looking man named Raj, was initially reluctant. I don't keep footage that old. Are you sure? This is from October 2021. Do you have any archives? Any backup systems? Raj sighed. Let me check. He disappeared into a back room. Aaron waited, anxiety building. After 15 minutes, Raj returned with a hard drive. I keep yearly backups. This is from 2021, but I can't let you take it. Can I look at it here? Raj hesitated. 10 minutes, that's it. Aaron connected the hard drive to his laptop and pulled up footage. From October 2021. He searched for the date the phone was purchased, 2 weeks before Margaret's death. He found the timestamp and played the video. A figure approached the counter. Male. Average height. Wearing a baseball cap pulled low. Sunglasses despite being indoors. The person paid cash for a prepaid phone and left. Aaron couldn't see the face, but he could see something else. On the man's wrist was a distinctive watch. Silver, with a thick band and a blue face. Aaron's hands shook as he took screenshots. He'd seen that watch before. In a photograph on Thomas Pruitt's mantle. Aaron sat. In his motel room, the screenshot of the watch displayed on his laptop screen beside a photo of Thomas Pruitt's house he'd taken during his first visit. The watches were identical. It wasn't definitive proof. Thousands of people could own the same model. But combined with everything else, it was another piece falling into place. Thomas had bought a burner phone 2 weeks before Margaret's death. He'd called her the night she died, and that call had lasted through her murder. But why would Margaret stay on the phone with someone who was attacking her? Unless she wasn't on the phone with Thomas. Unless someone else had been on that call. Someone Margaret trusted. Someone she'd talked to even while being attacked. Aaron's mind raced through possibilities. He needed to find out more about those cash withdrawals Margaret had been making. $2,500 every month for a year. Over $30,000 total. Who needed that much money? And why cash? Aaron pulled up Margaret's bank records again, studying the withdrawal dates. They were consistent, always the first Tuesday of each month. Like an appointment, an obligation, he cross-referenced with Linda Calloway's timeline. Emma's mother had been in and out of rehab multiple times during that period. Each stint cost money, money Linda didn't have. Was Margaret paying for her daughter's treatment? Aaron found the rehab facility's name in court documents. Serenity Hills, about an hour outside Oak Hollow. He called them. I'm researching a case involving one of your former patients, Linda Calloway. Can you confirm whether she was a patient there between 2020 and 2021? I'm sorry, we can't release patient information without proper authorization. I'm not asking for medical details, just confirmation of dates. I still can't help you. Without authorization. Aaron hung up, frustrated. He needed another approach. He called Douglas Brennan. Did Linda Calloway testify at the trial? Briefly. She was barely coherent. The prosecution used her as an example of why Emma needed Margaret's guidance. Unstable mother, absent father. Difficult home life. Did anyone ask her about Margaret's finances? No. Why? Because I think Margaret was supporting Linda's rehab treatment, paying cash every month. If that's true, it means Linda wasn't the beneficiary in Margaret's will. Thomas was. So if Margaret died, Linda lost her support system. And Thomas gained an inheritance, Brennan finished. But that still doesn't explain how he framed Emma. No, Aaron said slowly. But it explains why Linda didn't fight harder for her daughter. What do you mean? Think about it. Linda was struggling with addiction, dependent on Margaret for money and support. If she made waves, if she pushed too hard against the verdict, she might lose what little stability she had left. Maybe someone convinced her it was better to stay quiet. That's a hell of an accusation. Everything about this case is a hell of an accusation, Aaron said. I need to talk to Linda. Linda Calloway lived in a small rental house on the south side of Oak Hollow. The yard was overgrown, paint peeling from the shutters. A rusty sedan sat in the driveway. Aaron knocked on the door. No answer. He knocked again. Ms. Calloway, my name is Aaron Fletcher. Aaron. I'm investigating your daughter's case. A long silence. Then the door opened a crack. Linda looked older than her years, mid-40s but worn down by life. Thin, with dark circles under her eyes and hair that needed washing. She wore sweatpants and an oversized t-shirt. Emma doesn't want to see me, she said. Her voice was hoarse. Hasn't in 2 years. I'm not here about that, I'm here about your mother. Linda's expression hardened. I have nothing to say. Please, just 5 minutes. She hesitated, then opened the door wider. 5 minutes. The inside of the house was dim, cluttered. Magazines and empty takeout containers covered the coffee table. The air smelled stale. They sat in the living room. Ms. Calloway. Linda. I'm trying to understand what happened the night your mother died. I don't think Emma did it. Linda laughed bitterly. Everyone thinks Emma did it, Emma. The police, the jury, the whole damn country. But what do you think? Linda looked away. It doesn't matter what I think. It matters to your daughter. My daughter won't speak to me. She made that very clear. Because she thinks you abandoned her. Linda's eyes filled with tears. I didn't abandon her, I wasn't strong enough to fight. Not against all of them. All of who? The lawyers, the police, the DA. They all said the evidence was clear. That Emma did it. And God help me, I believed them. Because it was easier than believing someone else killed my mother and let my daughter take the fall. Aaron leaned forward. Your mother was withdrawing $2,500 every month, cash. Do you know why? Linda wiped her eyes. She was paying for my treatment. Serenity Hills. Insurance didn't cover it all, so Mom paid the difference. Every month, like clockwork. For how long? Almost a year. I was supposed to stay longer, but after she died, Linda's voice broke. I couldn't afford it anymore, so I left. Who knew about the payments? Just Mom and me, and the facility, I guess. Did you know your mother left half her estate to Thomas Pruitt? Linda nodded slowly. I found out after she died. I was hurt. I understood Mom was disappointed in me. but to give half her money to a neighbor instead of her own daughter. Did you ever ask Thomas about it? Once. He said Mom wanted to make sure someone responsible would benefit. Implied, I just wasted on drugs. Her hands clenched. He wasn't wrong, but it still hurt. Did Thomas know about the cash withdrawals? I don't know. Maybe. He and Mom were close. He helped her with things around the house. They talked a lot. Aaron felt pieces clicking together. Did your mother ever seem worried, scared, in the weeks before she died? Linda thought for a moment. Actually, yeah, she seemed stressed, distracted. I asked her about it once and she said it was nothing. But she changed her locks about a month before it happened. Why? She said she'd lost her keys, but now that I think about it, she seemed paranoid, kept checking over her shoulder, wouldn't let Emma walk home alone from school anymore. Did you tell the police this? I tried. They said it wasn't relevant, that Emma had been acting out, and Mom was stressed about that. But Emma wasn't acting out, was she? Linda shook her head. Emma was quiet, too quiet. After I got out of rehab the first time, she barely spoke to me. Just went to school, came home, did her homework, helped Mom around the house. She was withdrawn, but not violent, never violent. Aaron pulled out his phone and showed Linda the photo of Thomas's watch. Do you recognize this? Yeah, Tom's watch. He wore it all the time. Why? Because I have footage of someone buying a burner phone 2 weeks before your mother died. Someone wearing this exact watch. Linda's face went pale. You think Tom... I think... Tom called your mother the night she died. I think he was on the phone with her when she was killed. But why? Why would he hurt her? Because she was going to change her will, Aaron said, the pieces finally coming together. She was going to cut him out. Maybe she found out something about him. Maybe she suspected he was stealing from her. Whatever the reason, he couldn't let that happen. Linda covered her mouth with her hand. Oh my God. Linda, did Emma ever mention Thomas? Did she ever seem uncomfortable around him? Linda was quiet for a long moment. Then quietly, yes. About 6 months before Mom died, Emma told me she didn't like it when Tom came over. Said he gave her bad feelings. I didn't think much of it at the time. Figured she was just being moody. Did you tell your mother? No. I should have. But I didn't want to cause problems. Mom seemed happy to have Tom's help, and I was dealing with my own issues. Aaron felt a cold rage building. Emma tried to tell people, but no one listened. Linda broke down completely. I should have protected her. I should have fought harder. But I was so messed up, so focused on my own problems. And now she's going to die. For something she didn't do. Not if I can help it, Aaron said. That evening, Aaron compiled everything he had. Thomas Pruitt benefited from Margaret's death. He'd sold Margaret's missing jewelry days after the murder. He'd bought a burner phone before the murder. He'd called Margaret the night she died. Diane Pruitt had seen someone at the house that night. Emma had expressed discomfort around Thomas. Margaret had changed her locks and seemed paranoid before her death. It was all circumstantial. Suggestive, but not proof. He needed that phone recording. The call from the burner phone to Margaret's phone the night she died. If he could prove Thomas had been on that call, if he could prove he'd heard Margaret being attacked and done nothing, or worse, if his voice was on that recording, it would blow the case wide open. But the recording had disappeared from evidence, which meant someone had deliberately removed it. Aaron thought about Detective Kovac, about Victoria Hale, about everyone who'd worked on the case, who had access to the evidence locker, who had the authority to remove items. Aaron called a contact he had in law enforcement, a retired detective who consulted on his previous documentaries. John, I need information about evidence handling procedures. If something goes missing from an evidence locker, what's the protocol? Depends on when it went missing. During active investigation, that's a serious problem. After conviction, things sometimes get transferred, archived, or even destroyed if storage is an issue. What about items from a high-profile case? Those usually get preserved longer. Why? I'm working on the Emma Calloway case. There was supposed to be a phone with a crucial recording on it, but the recording was never presented at trial, and now I can't find any mention of it in the evidence logs. John was quiet for a moment. If a recording existed and was deliberately suppressed, that's grounds for prosecutorial misconduct, maybe even criminal tampering. How do I prove it existed? Phone records. If there was a call, there's a record with the carrier. Might be archived, but it should exist. Aaron felt a surge of hope. Can you help me get those records? I can try, but it'll take time, and you'll need to know which carrier. I'll find out, Aaron said. He hung up and immediately started researching. Margaret had used a local carrier. Aaron found their customer service number and called. Explained he was a documentary filmmaker working on a case. They wouldn't give him information without a subpoena. But they confirmed that records from 2021 still existed in their archives. Aaron called Douglas Brennan. We need to file a motion to access phone records. Can you do that? On what grounds? Newly discovered evidence suggesting someone else was on the phone with Margaret when she died. Evidence that was suppressed during trial. Brennan was silent for a long moment. That's going to make a lot of people angry. Good, Aaron said. Let them be angry, because if we're right, they helped convict an innocent child. I'll draft the motion, Brennan said. But Aaron, be careful. If you're right about this, if there really was a cover-up, the people responsible aren't going to let you expose them without a fight. I know, Aaron said. But Emma's been fighting alone for 3 years. It's time someone fought for her. Aaron received the phone call at 2 a.m. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. Hello? Heavy breathing. Then a voice, distorted, mechanical. Stop digging, Mr. Fletcher. You don't know what you're getting into. Who is this? Someone who's trying to save your life. Drop the Calloway case. Walk away. Forget everything you think you know. Why? What are you afraid I'll find? You're not as smart as you think you are, and you're putting yourself in danger. Is that a threat? It's a warning. Last one you'll get. The line went dead. Aaron sat up in bed, adrenaline pumping. He checked his door, locked. Checked the windows, secure. Then he pulled out his laptop and began documenting everything. Someone was watching him. Someone knew exactly what he was. Investigating. And they were scared enough to threaten him directly. That meant he was close. The next morning, Aaron met Douglas Brennan at a diner outside of town. Brennan looked exhausted. I filed the motion for phone records yesterday afternoon. Within 2 hours, I got a call from Victoria. Hale's office, they're opposing it. On what grounds? They claim it's a fishing expedition, that there's no basis for reopening a closed case, that you're just trying to create a conspiracy theory for entertainment purposes. Aaron felt his jaw tighten. What did you say? I said we have new evidence suggesting prosecutorial misconduct and suppression of exculpatory evidence. The judge scheduled a hearing for next week. Will we win? I don't know, Brennan admitted. The bar for reopening a case is extremely high. We need to show not just that there were errors, but that those errors likely affected the outcome, and we need to show it with more than speculation. I have Thomas Pruitt on camera buying a burner phone. I have bank records showing he sold Margaret's jewelry. I have a witness who saw someone at the house that night. I have Emma's statement about being threatened. All circumstantial. A good prosecutor will argue it means nothing, that Thomas could have legitimate reasons for all of those things. Aaron leaned forward. Then we need to make it not circumstantial. We need to find that phone recording, or we need to get Thomas to confess. How do you propose we do that? Aaron was quiet for a moment. What if we make him think we already have the proof? What if we set a trap? Brennan's eyes narrowed. What kind of trap? I reach out to Thomas. Tell him I have the phone recording. Tell him I'm willing to listen to his side of the story before I go. Public. See if he incriminates himself. That's dangerous. If he's violent, I'll record everything, and I'll do it in a public place. Brennan shook his head. I don't like this. Do you have a better idea? Silence. Douglas, Emma has 3 years before they transfer her to death row. 3 years to find the truth. I'm not going to waste them playing by rules that were rigged from the start. Brennan sighed heavily. If you do this, you need to be careful. And you need backup. Someone who knows where you are. I will, Aaron said. But first, I need to understand something. Why didn't you fight harder during the trial? You had Emma's statement about being threatened. You had inconsistencies in the timeline. Why didn't you push? Brennan looked away. Because I was pressured. By who? By everyone. The judge wanted the trial to move quickly. It was a media circus, and he wanted it. Over. The prosecution threatened to pile on additional charges if we went too hard on cross-examination. And my own firm. He trailed off. What about your firm? They wanted me to take a plea deal, said a trial was too risky, that Emma would definitely be convicted. They wanted me to negotiate for life without parole instead of death. But you went to trial anyway, because Emma refused to plead guilty. She insisted she hadn't done it. So I went to trial, but Brennan's voice cracked. I didn't fight as hard as I should have. I was scared of losing, scared of the consequences, and I let that fear control me. What consequences? Brennan met Aaron's eyes. About halfway through the trial, I got a call. Anonymous. They told me if I dug too deep into certain aspects of the case, if I implicated certain people, there would be repercussions. My career would be over. My family would be at risk. Aaron felt ice in his veins. Did you report the threat? To who? The same police department that was testifying against my client? The same DA's office that was prosecuting her? Brennan shook his head. I had no one to turn to, so I did what I thought would keep everyone safe. I defended Emma, but I didn't push the dangerous questions. Like who else might have killed Margaret? Exactly. So you let a 12-year-old take the fall to protect yourself? Brennan flinched. Yes, and I've hated myself every day since. Aaron wanted to be angry, wanted to rage at this man who'd had the power to save Emma and hadn't used it. But looking at Brennan's haunted expression, he realized something. They were all victims of the same system, a system that protected the powerful and sacrificed the vulnerable. Help me fix it now, Aaron said. Help me get Emma. Help. Out. Brennan nodded. I will, whatever it takes. That afternoon, Aaron drafted a message to Thomas Pruitt. He kept it simple. Mr. Pruitt, I've obtained the phone recording from the night Margaret Calloway died, the one where you called her from a burner phone. I'm willing to hear your side of the story before I take this to the authorities. Let's talk. Aaron Fletcher. He sent it via email and text. Then he waited. 2 hours later, his phone rang. Thomas Pruitt. You're bluffing, Thomas said. His voice was tight, controlled. There's no recording. The phone carrier has records of a 14-minute call from your burner phone to Margaret's cell at 10:31 p.m. on October 14th, 2021. That call was active when she died. That doesn't mean... It means you heard her being attacked. At minimum, that's accessory to murder. At worst, you were giving instructions to whoever was in the house. A long silence, then. What do you want? The truth, that's all. The truth is that girl killed her grandmother. Everyone knows it. Then why did you buy a burner phone? Why did you call Margaret that night? Why did you sell her jewelry days after she died? I want a lawyer. This isn't... This... Police interrogation, Mr. Pruitt. I'm just a filmmaker. You can hang up right now, and I'll take what I have to the authorities. Or you can meet with me, tell me your side, and maybe we can find a way to resolve this that doesn't end with you in prison. Another long silence. Aaron could hear Thomas breathing heavily. Tomorrow, Thomas finally said. 3 p.m., the park by the river. Come alone. I'll be there. Thomas hung up. Aaron immediately called Douglas Brennan. He took the bait. Meeting tomorrow at 3. I'll be nearby, hidden but close enough to help if things go wrong. And Aaron, record everything. We need him on tape. I will. Aaron hung up and pulled out his recording equipment. Small microphones, a backup phone, a camera he could hide in his jacket. He was walking into a confrontation with a potential killer, but if it meant getting the truth for Emma, it was worth the risk. That night, Aaron couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Emma's face in the visiting room, the emptiness in her eyes, the resignation. She'd given up hope because the world had given up on her, but Aaron hadn't. He pulled out his laptop and started drafting the documentary outline. Even if the confrontation with Thomas went nowhere, he could still release what he had. Create public pressure, force people to re-examine the case. It wouldn't be as clean as a confession, but it might be enough to start the process of justice. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "You're making a mistake. Last chance to walk away." Aaron deleted the message and kept working. The next day, Aaron arrived at the park 20 minutes early. It was a cool afternoon, overcast, the kind of weather that made everything feel heavy. A few people walked dogs in the distance, but the area near the river was mostly empty. Douglas Brennan was positioned in his car about 50 yards away, watching through binoculars. Aaron had microphones taped to his chest, a backup recorder in his pocket, and his phone set to record video from inside his jacket. At exactly 3 p.m., Thomas Pruitt arrived. He looked worse than before, thinner with dark circles under his eyes. He moved with a nervous energy, constantly looking around. They sat on a bench by the water. "So," Thomas said, "let's hear it. What exactly do you think you know?" Aaron kept his voice calm. "I know you were in Margaret's will. I know you needed money. I know you bought a burner phone and called her the night she died. That doesn't prove anything. Then explain it to me. Make me understand." Thomas was quiet for a long moment. Then he laughed bitterly. "You think you're so smart. You think you've figured it all out, but you don't know anything. So tell me. Why, so you can twist my words and make me into the villain? I'm not trying to make you into anything. I'm trying to understand what happened, because right now, a 15-year-old girl is sitting in a cell waiting to die for something I don't think she did." Thomas stood abruptly. "She killed Margaret. I don't know why everyone wants to pretend otherwise." "Then why are you so nervous?" Aaron pressed. "Why did you agree to meet me? Why not just ignore me if you have nothing to hide?" Thomas spun around, anger flashing. His eyes. "Because you're spreading lies. You're trying to ruin my life with your conspiracy theories." "I'm trying to find the truth. The truth is Margaret's dead. Emma killed her, and nothing you do is going to change that." Thomas started walking away. "Were you in the house that night?" Aaron called after him. Thomas stopped. "Did you kill Margaret, or did you just help cover it up?" Thomas turned slowly. His face had gone pale. "You need to stop." "Why? What are you afraid of?" "I'm not afraid, He stopped himself. "You're what?" Thomas's hands were shaking. "You don't understand. It wasn't supposed to happen like that. It wasn't." "Wasn't what, Thomas?" Thomas looked at Aaron with something like desperation. "I tried to stop it, but it was too late. And then Emma was there and everything fell apart and I didn't know what to do." Aaron's heart pounded. "Stop." "What, Thomas? Who were you trying to stop?" But Thomas shook his head violently. I can't say anything more." "Because you're afraid? Because someone threatened you?" Thomas laughed, a broken sound. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." "Then tell me." But Thomas was already walking. Away, faster now. "Thomas, wait." He didn't turn back. Aaron sat on the bench watching him disappear into the parking lot. He'd gotten something. Not a confession, but close. Thomas had admitted he was there. That he'd tried to stop something. That Emma's conviction was wrong. It wasn't enough, but it was a start. Aaron played the recording for Douglas Brennan 5 times. Each time they focused on a different phrase. "It wasn't supposed to happen like that. I tried to stop it. You have no idea who you're dealing with." Thomas had essentially admitted someone else was involved. Someone he was afraid of. Someone powerful enough to keep him silent for 3 years. "This is good," Brennan said, "but it's not enough. A defense attorney could argue he was speaking hypothetically, that you manipulated him, that the recording is out of context. So what do we need? We need to identify who he was protecting, and we need hard evidence connecting that person to the murder. Aaron pulled up his notes. Thomas said, "I tried to stop it." Stop what? Stop who? He could have been trying to stop the murder, or trying to stop someone from framing Emma, or trying to stop Margaret from doing something, Aaron added. What if Margaret found out something bad enough to get her killed? Brennan leaned back. Like what? I don't know yet. But everyone keeps saying Margaret was beloved in the community. Volunteered everywhere. Knew everyone. Aaron's mind worked through possibilities. What if she witnessed something, or knew something about someone important? That's a lot of speculation. Everything about this case has been speculation because no one looked beyond Emma. Aaron stood, pacing. We need to dig into Margaret's life, not just her finances, her activities, her friends, her connections. Where do you start? With the people she trusted most. Aaron spent the next 2 days interviewing everyone who'd known Margaret, her pastor at the church where she volunteered, her book club friends, her doctor, the staff at the senior center where she played bingo every Thursday. Everyone said the same thing. Margaret was kind, generous, trustworthy. She never spoke ill of anyone. She was always willing to help. But one conversation stood out. Aaron met with a woman named Patricia Chen, who'd been Margaret's closest friend. They'd known each other for 30 years. They sat in Patricia's living room, surrounded by photographs of grandchildren and cross-stitch projects. Margaret was the best person I knew, Patricia said, her eyes watering. When she died, I couldn't believe it. And when they said Emma did it, she shook her head. I didn't want to believe that either. Did Margaret ever mention having problems with anyone? Arguments, disagreements, anything unusual? Patricia hesitated. Well, there was one thing. About 2 months before she died, Margaret seemed worried about something. Distracted. I asked her what was wrong, and she said she'd seen something she wasn't supposed to see. Aaron's pulse quickened. Did she say what? No, I pushed her on it, but she just said she needed to figure out what to do. That she didn't want to hurt anyone, but she couldn't stay silent either. Did she mention any names? No, but she did say it involved someone respected in the community, someone people looked up to. Patricia wrung her hands. I told her to go to the police if she was worried. She said she couldn't, that they wouldn't believe her, that she needed proof first. Did she ever find proof? I don't. No. We were supposed to have lunch the week after she died, but Patricia trailed off, wiping her eyes. Aaron felt pieces shifting. Patricia, do you remember anything else? Any detail, no matter how small? Patricia thought for a long moment. There was one thing. The last time I saw her, maybe 3 days before she died, she had bruises on her arm, fresh ones. I asked her what happened and she said she'd fallen. But Margaret wasn't clumsy, and the bruises looked like someone had grabbed her. Did you tell the police this? Yes, after she died, but they said it wasn't relevant, that the bruises were probably from when Emma attacked her. Patricia's voice broke. But the bruises I saw were at least 3 days old. They couldn't have been from that night. Aaron's mind raced. Did anyone else see these bruises? I don't know. Maybe her doctor? Aaron made a note. Oh. Can you think of anything else? Anywhere Margaret went in those last few weeks that was unusual? Patricia frowned. Actually, yes. She went to the county clerk's office. I remember because she asked me to come with her. She seemed nervous, said she wanted a witness. A witness for what? I don't know. When we got there, she asked me to wait outside. She was in there for maybe 30 minutes. When she came out, she had an envelope. She wouldn't tell me what was in it. Do you know what happened to that envelope? No idea. I never saw it again. Aaron thanked Patricia and left. Quickly. His mind was spinning. Margaret had obtained some kind of document from the county clerk's office, something important enough that she wanted a witness along, something she kept secret. And now, it was missing. Aaron went directly to the county clerk's office. The clerk on duty was a young woman named Jessica who looked barely out of college. "I'm researching a case involving Margaret Calloway. She came here about a month before she died to request some kind of document. Can you help me figure out what it was? Do you have a specific date?" Aaron gave her the approximate time frame. Based on Patricia's memory, Jessica searched the computer system. Here, September 12, 2021. Margaret Calloway requested copies of property records. Property records for what? It doesn't specify here, but if she paid for copies, there should be a record. Jessica clicked through screens. Yes. She requested copies of property transfer records for 428 Oakmont Drive. Aaron wrote down the address. "Do you know who owns that property?" "I can look it up," Jessica typed. "Registered to an LLC, Oakmont Holdings. Can you see who owns the LLC? Not from this system. You'd need to check with the Secretary of State's Business Registry." Aaron thanked her and immediately pulled up the state's business database on his phone. Oakmont Holdings, LLC, registered in 2019. Owner listed as... Aaron's blood went cold. Raymond Kovach, the detective who'd investigated Margaret's murder. Aaron sat in his car, trying to process what he'd found. Detective Kovach owned property under an LLC. Margaret had requested records for that property a month before she died. Why? Aaron searched for the address. It was in a rural area outside town. He pulled up satellite images. The property showed a large house, what looked like several outbuildings, surrounded by wooded land. He drove there immediately. The property was accessed by a long gravel driveway. A gate blocked the entrance, but it was unlocked. Aaron hesitated, then drove through. The house was old but well-maintained. 2 cars in the driveway. One was Kovach's truck that Aaron recognized from visiting him. Aaron parked and approached the house cautiously. Before he could knock, the door opened. Detective Kovach stood there, and he didn't look surprised. "I wondered when you'd find this place," Kovach said. Aaron's instincts screamed at him to leave, but he held his ground. Why did Margaret Calloway request property records for this address? Kovach's expression was unreadable. "Come inside. We need to talk." "I'm fine out here." "No, you're not, because there are things you need to understand. Things I should have told you from the start." Kovach stepped aside. "Please, I'm not going to hurt you, but if you want the truth about what happened to Margaret, you need to hear this." Every instinct told Aaron this was a terrible idea, but he'd come this far. He followed Kovach inside. The house was dark, curtains drawn. Kovach led him to a living room and gestured to a chair. Aaron sat, every muscle tense. Kovach poured himself a drink, whiskey from the smell, and downed it in one swallow. "Margaret found out about this place," Kovach said finally. "Found out what I was using it for." "What were you using it for?" Kovach laughed bitterly. "Something stupid, something illegal, something that could have destroyed my career and my life." Aaron waited. "I was running a card game," Kovach said. "High-stakes poker. Invitation only. Mostly people with money who didn't want their gambling showing up in casino. Records? Politicians, lawyers, businessmen." He poured another drink. "It was good money, tax-free, and I told myself it wasn't hurting anyone." "How did Margaret find out?" "She saw me here one night. She'd been visiting a friend who lived nearby and took a wrong turn. Saw cars lined up, recognized some of the people coming in." Kovach's hands shook slightly. "She confronted me a few days later, said she was going to report it." "So you killed her?" "No!" Kovach's voice was sharp. "I didn't touch her. I swear to God I didn't." "But you know who did." Kovach was quiet for a long moment. Then, barely above a whisper, "Yes." "Who?" "Someone who had a lot more to lose than I did." Kovach met Aaron's eyes. "Someone who was there that night. Someone who panicked when Margaret threatened to expose everything." "Give me a name." Kovacs shook his head. I can't. He'll kill me. He's already threatened. A sound from the back of the house. Footsteps. Kovac's face went white. Oh God, he's here. You need to leave, now. Who's here? Who are you talking about? But Kovacs was already moving, pushing Aaron toward the door. Go, get out, don't come back. The footsteps were closer now. Aaron stumbled toward the exit, adrenaline surging. Behind him, he heard a voice. Calm. Cold. Ray, we talked about this. Aaron turned. In the doorway stood a man in his 50s. Well-dressed. Familiar. It took Aaron a moment to place him. Judge Harold Winters, the judge who'd presided over Emma's trial. Winters looked at Aaron with mild surprise. Mr. Fletcher, I wasn't expecting you. What are you doing here? Aaron managed. This is my property, Winters said calmly. Well, partially. Ray and I are business partners. Have been for years. Aaron's mind raced. The judge and the detective. Partners in an illegal gambling operation. And Margaret had found out. You killed her, Aaron said. Winters smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. That's a serious accusation. Margaret was going to expose your operation. She had proof. So you killed her and framed Emma to cover it up. Interesting. Theory, but completely unprovable. Winters stepped closer. Even if it were true, which I'm not saying it is, who would believe you? A failed documentary filmmaker with a history of conspiracy theories? Against me, a respected judge with 30 years of service? Kovacs stood frozen, looking between them. You helped him, Aaron said to Kovacs. You suppressed evidence, you buried the phone recording. You let an innocent child take the fall. I had no choice, Kovacs whispered. There's always a choice. Winters laughed. Such noble sentiment. But the reality is, Mr. Fletcher, that sometimes the innocent suffer so that the guilty can survive. That's not justice, that's just life. I'm going to expose you. With what evidence? Winters spread his hands. You have theories, speculation. Nothing that would hold up in court. And even if you did, which you don't, I control the court. I decide what's admissible. I decide what gets heard. Not forever. Long enough. Winters' smile faded. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave Oak Hollow. Stop investigating. Forget everything you think you know. Because if you don't... He glanced at Kovacs. Well, people have accidents. Detective Kovacs can tell you about that. Aaron felt ice in his veins. You're threatening me? I'm advising you, there's a difference. Aaron looked at Kovacs. Are you really going to let him get away with this? Kovacs wouldn't meet his eyes. Aaron turned and walked out. His hands shook as he got in his car. He'd recorded everything, the microphone was still running. He had the confession. Not direct, but close enough. But as he drove away, one thought consumed him. Judge Winters was right about one thing. Who would believe him over a respected judge? He needed more. Something. Undeniable. And he knew exactly where to find it. Aaron drove straight to Douglas Brennan's office, barely registering the traffic around him. His hands still trembled as he parked. The recording device felt like it was burning through his jacket. Brennan was working late, alone in his office. Aaron burst through the door. He looked up in alarm. Aaron, what happened? Aaron closed the door, locked it, and pulled out the recorder. Listen to this. He played the entire conversation. Kovacs' admission about the gambling operation. Winters' veiled threats. The implicit confession about Margaret's murder and the frame-up. Brennan's face grew paler with each passing minute. When it ended, he sat back heavily. My God. We have him, Aaron said. We have proof that the judge who presided over Emma's trial was involved in Margaret's murder, that the detective who investigated suppressed evidence. This is enough to get us both killed, Brennan interrupted. Aaron stopped. What? Aaron, do you understand what you're holding? Evidence that could destroy not just a judge and a detective, but potentially dozens of powerful people who were part of that gambling operation. Brennan's voice was strained. Winters said it himself, politicians, lawyers, businessmen. These aren't just random criminals. These are people with resources, connections, and everything to lose. So what do we do? Just let them get away with it? Let Emma die? No. But we need to be smart about this. We can't just release this recording and hope for the best. Winters could claim it was doctored, taken out of context, obtained illegally. He has the power to bury this just like he buried everything else. Aaron felt frustration building. Then what's the point? Why did I risk everything to get this if we can't use it? I didn't say we can't use it. I said we need to be strategic. Brennan stood and began pacing. We need to build an airtight case, multiple sources, corroborating evidence, witnesses willing to go on record. We need to make this so big, so public, that Winters can't suppress it. How long will that take? Weeks, maybe months. Emma doesn't have months. She has 3 years before they transfer her to death row, and every day she spends in that facility is another day of her life stolen from her. Brennan stopped pacing. I know. Believe me, I know. But if we move too fast, if we tip our hand before we're ready, Winters will destroy the evidence, and us along with it. Aaron wanted to argue, but deep down he knew Brennan was right. Fine, he said. What's the plan? They worked through the night, building a strategy. First, they needed to identify everyone involved in the gambling operation. Names, dates, connections. If they could prove that multiple powerful people had motive to keep Margaret silent, it would strengthen their case. Second, they needed to find the original phone recording, the one that had been suppressed. If it still existed somewhere, it would be undeniable proof that evidence had been deliberately hidden. Third, they needed witnesses, people who knew about the operation, who could testify, who were willing to come forward despite the risks. It was a massive undertaking and dangerous, but it was the only... I'll start with the property records, Aaron said. See who else is listed as having business connections to Kovac or Winters. Follow the money trail. I'll file a motion for a new trial based on judicial misconduct, Brennan said. It'll be denied, obviously, but it gets everything on the C. Creates a paper trail. Won't that alert Winters that we're coming after him? He already knows, but filing through official channels means he can't make it disappear quietly. It becomes part of the public record. Aaron nodded. What about protection? If these people are willing to kill, what's to stop them from coming after us? Nothing, Brennan said grimly, which is why we need to work fast and stay careful. Over the next week, Aaron threw himself into research. He discovered that Oakmont Holdings had ties to 3 other LLCs, all registered around the same time. Cross-referencing the business registrations with public records, he found connections to a city councilman, a prominent real estate developer, the owner of a local car dealership chain, a state congressman, all people with money, all people with reputations to protect. Aaron documented everything, building a web of connections that stretched far beyond what he'd initially imagined. This wasn't just about covering up one murder. This was about protecting an entire network of corruption. And Emma had been the perfect scapegoat. A troubled child with an unstable mother. Easy to blame, easy to convict, easy to forget. Aaron's next target was finding someone willing to talk. He started with the lower-level players, people who'd attended the poker games but weren't organizers, people who might have less to lose. He found a name in Kovac's property records, Marcus Webb, a local accountant, who'd signed as a witness on some of the LLC paperwork. Aaron tracked him down at his office. Webb was nervous from the moment Aaron introduced himself. I don't know what you're talking about, Webb said immediately. I think you do. You were part of the poker operation at Oakmont Holdings. You witness documents probably handled money. I want you to leave. Margaret Calloway found out about the operation. She was killed because of it, and a 15-year-old girl is sitting in a cell waiting to die because people like you stayed silent. Webb's face went pale. I didn't know that was going to happen. I swear I didn't. But you knew something was wrong. Webb looked around his office as if the walls might be listening. I can't talk about this. They'll destroy me. They'll destroy you anyway if this comes out and you're on the wrong side of it. But if you come forward, now if you cooperate, you might have a chance. Webb's hands shook. I have a family, kids, I can't. Emma had a family too. A grandmother who was killed, a mother who couldn't protect her, and now she's going to die for a crime she didn't commit. How do you live with that? Tears formed in Webb's eyes. I didn't know what they were going to do. When Margaret died, when they arrested Emma, I thought maybe it really was her. I wanted to believe it wasn't connected. But you knew better. Webb nodded slowly. About a week before Margaret died, I was at the property. I heard Winters and Kovac arguing about her. Winters said she was a problem that needed to be dealt with. I didn't think he meant kill her? Webb broke down completely. I should have said something. I should have warned her. But I was scared. And then she was dead and it was too late. Aaron felt a mix of anger and pity. It's not too late to do the right thing now. Will you testify about what you heard? Webb wiped his eyes. If I do, they'll come after me. They might. But if enough people come forward, if we build a case strong enough, they won't be able to touch anyone. Safety in numbers. Webb was quiet for a long time. Then finally, okay, I'll testify. But you need to promise me protection, for me and my family. I'll do everything I can, Aaron said. It wasn't much, but it was a start. With Webb's testimony, Aaron had leverage. He reached out to two other names from his research, people who'd been peripherally involved in the gambling operation. One refused to talk, but the other, a woman named Sandra Kim who owned a catering company, agreed to meet. Sandra had provided food and drinks for the poker games. She'd seen everything. I knew it was shady, she told Aaron over coffee. But the money was good and I told myself it was just gambling. Rich people playing cards. What harm could it do? Did you ever see Margaret Calloway there? No, but I heard them talking about her after she died. Winters seemed relieved, like a problem had been solved. Did you hear him admit to anything? Not directly, but the way he talked. Sandra shook her head. I'm not stupid. I knew what had happened, and when that little girl got convicted, I felt sick. But what could I do? You can tell the truth now. Testify about what you heard. Sandra hesitated. I'll think about it. We don't have much time. I said I'll think about it. Aaron left his contact information and hoped she'd come around. Meanwhile, Douglas Brennan was making progress on the legal front. He'd filed the motion for a new trial, and as expected, it was immediately opposed by the DA's office. But the hearing was scheduled, and that meant everything would become part of the public record. Brennan also contacted the State Bar Association, filing a complaint against Judge Winters for judicial misconduct. It would trigger an investigation, adding, another layer of pressure. We're poking the bear, Brennan warned. Things are going to get dangerous from here. He was right. 2 days later, Aaron's motel room was broken into. Nothing was stolen, but his files were scattered, his laptop was smashed, and a message was spray-painted on the bathroom mirror. Last warning, Aaron called the police. They took a report, but he knew it was pointless. Kovac would make sure nothing came of it. He moved to a different motel, this one on the outskirts of town. Started keeping his most important evidence in a safety deposit box at a bank. And he kept working, because every day that passed was another day Emma spent behind bars for a crime she didn't commit. A week before the hearing, Aaron received an unexpected call. Mr. Fletcher, this is Thomas Pruitt. Aaron's pulse quickened. Thomas, I need to talk to you. In person, tonight. About what? About the truth, about what really happened. Thomas's voice was strained, almost desperate. I can't keep living like this. I need to tell someone before it kills me. Where do you want to meet? The park. Same place as before, 10 p.m. I'll be there. Aaron hung up and Immediately called Brennan. Thomas wants to talk, says he's ready to tell the truth. It could be a trap, Brennan warned. I know, but if he's really willing to cooperate, we need his testimony. He was there. He knows everything. I'm coming with you. No, he said to come alone. If he sees anyone else, he might bolt. Brennan was silent for a moment. Then at least take this. He gave Aaron an address. It's a lawyer I trust. Someone outside of Oak Hollow. If anything happens to me or you, if we both disappear, all our evidence goes to her automatically. Insurance. Aaron nodded. Good idea. That night as he drove to the park, Aaron couldn't shake the feeling that he was walking into something he might not walk out of. But Emma's face stayed in his mind. Her hollow eyes. Her resigned voice. I don't have any hope left. Aaron was going to give her hope, even if it cost him everything. The park was empty when Aaron arrived. No streetlights nearby, just darkness and the sound of the river moving slowly past. Aaron parked and checked his recording equipment. Everything was running. Brennan knew where he was. If something went wrong, there would be evidence. He stepped out of the car. Thomas Pruitt emerged from the shadows near the riverbank. He looked terrible, gaunt, eyes red-rimmed, clothes disheveled. You came, Thomas said. You said you wanted to talk. Thomas nodded, swaying slightly. Aaron smelled alcohol on him. I can't do this anymore, Thomas said, his, voice breaking. I can't sleep, can't eat. Every time I close my eyes, I see her face, Margaret's face, and Emma's face. That little girl in court looking at me, and I couldn't. Thomas, what happened that night? Thomas laughed bitterly. You already know, don't you? You figured it out. I need to hear it from you. Thomas was quiet for a long moment. Then, I loved Margaret. Not romantically. She was good to me when nobody else was. Gave me money when I needed it. Treated me like family. So why did you help kill her? I didn't. Thomas's voice cracked. I didn't help. I tried to stop it, but I was too late. Stop who? Winters, Judge Winters. Thomas's hand shook. Margaret called me that night. She was scared. Said Winters had come to her house, said he wanted to talk. She didn't trust him. Asked me to come over to be there with her. Aaron's heart pounded. What happened? By the time I got there, it was already... Thomas choked on his words. She was on the floor, bleeding. Winters was standing over her with the bookend. He was breathing hard like he'd been in a fight. What did you do? I panicked. I asked what the hell happened. He said Margaret had threatened him, that she was going to destroy everything, that he tried to reason with her, but she wouldn't listen. So he... Thomas couldn't continue. He killed her. Thomas nodded, tears streaming down his face. And then Emma came home. We heard the front door. Winters grabbed me and pulled me into the bedroom. We hid. Emma called out for her grandmother. She came into the living room and she saw the blood. Aaron felt sick. Emma was there. She saw something. She ran upstairs. We heard her door close. Winters told me we had to frame her, make it look like she did it. He said if we didn't, we'd both go to prison. He said he'd make sure I was convicted as an accomplice. So you helped plant evidence. He did most of it. Put the jewelry in Emma's room. Made sure her fingerprints were on the bookend. I just stood there. I let him do it. Thomas's voice was hollow. I let an innocent child take the blame because I was too much of a coward to tell the truth. Why didn't you come forward after? Because Winters controlled everything. The investigation, the trial, the evidence. He made sure nothing pointed to him, and he warned me if I said anything, he'd kill me too. Make it look like suicide. Aaron felt rage building. You let Emma be convicted, sentenced to death. I know. Thomas fell to his knees. I know what I did, and I'll never forgive myself. That's why I'm telling you now. I don't care what happens to me anymore. Aaron pulled out his phone. I'm calling the police. No! Thomas grabbed his arm. Not Kovac, he's part of it. He helped cover everything up. Then who? State police. FBI. Anyone outside Oak Hollow? Aaron nodded and started to dial. A sound behind them. Footsteps on gravel. Both men turned. Judge Winters stood at the edge of the parking lot, hands in his pockets. He looked calm, almost amused. "Thomas," he said conversationally, "I was hoping you'd be stronger than this." Thomas scrambled to his feet. "Stay away from us." "Or what? You'll confess? Mr. Fletcher already knows everything." "That's why he's here." Winters walked closer. "But it doesn't matter, because without proof it's just your word. A drunk's word, against mine." "I have proof," Aaron said, holding up his phone. "I recorded everything." Winters smiled. "Then I suppose we have a problem." He pulled his hand from his pocket. He was holding a gun. Aaron's mind went blank. Winters aimed the gun casually like he was holding a TV remote. "Give me the phone, Mr. Fletcher. You're going to shoot us in a public park?" "No witnesses, no cameras. And Detective Kovach will write up a very convincing report about how Thomas Pruitt attacked you both, how I arrived to help but was too late, how tragic it all was." Thomas stepped forward. "Harold, don't do this." "I don't have a choice, Tom. You made sure of that." Winters' voice hardened. "I gave you 3 years. 3 years to keep your mouth shut and live your life. And you couldn't even do that." "Because I can't live with what we did," Thomas shouted. "That girl is innocent." "That girl is convenient," Winters corrected. "And she'll die and everyone will forget about her, just like they forget about all the other inconvenient people." Aaron's hand
tightened around his phone. He needed to stall. "You'll never get away with this. Too many people know." "People like who? Douglas Brennan? A washed-up attorney with a guilty conscience? He'll have an accident too. Maybe a car crash. These things happen. I sent everything to the FBI."
Files, recordings, names. They already know about the gambling operation, about Margaret's murder, all of it. For the first time, Winters hesitated. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Aaron met his eyes. "You have 2 choices. Shoot us and confirm everything in those files, or walk away and take your chances with a trial. Either way, you're finished." Winters' jaw tightened. "You've ruined everything." "No," Aaron said quietly. "You ruined everything the night you killed Margaret Calloway." Winters raised the gun higher. Thomas moved. He lunged at Winters, grabbing for the weapon. They struggled. The gun went off, a deafening crack that echoed across the water. Thomas staggered backward, clutching his chest. Blood spread across his shirt. "No!" Aaron started forward. Winters turned the gun toward him, and then lights flooded the parking lot. "Drop the weapon!" State Police, 4. Cruisers, officers with weapons drawn. Winters froze. Behind them, Douglas Brennan emerged from one of the vehicles. "I called them," Brennan said. "The moment you left, Aaron. They've been listening to everything." Winters' face twisted with rage. He looked at the gun in his hand, at the police, surrounding him, at Thomas bleeding on the ground. Then he dropped the weapon. "Harold Winters," one of the officers said, moving forward with handcuffs. "You're under arrest for murder, attempted murder, and conspiracy." As they cuffed him, Winters looked at Aaron. "She'll still die, even if you expose me. The conviction stands." "Not for long," Aaron said. Thomas Pruitt died in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. His last words, whispered to the paramedic, were recorded. "Tell Emma I'm sorry." Aaron stood in the hospital waiting room, numb. He'd watched a man die trying to atone for 3 years of cowardice. It wasn't heroic, it wasn't redemption, but it was truth. Finally, the next 72 hours were a blur. Judge Harold Winters was formally charged with first-degree murder, attempted murder, conspiracy, and judicial misconduct. Detective Raymond Kovach was arrested as an accessory after the fact. The state police raided Kovach's property and found records of the gambling operation, names, dates, amounts. Dozens of people were implicated. Several resigned immediately. Others lawyered up. Victoria Hale, the prosecutor who'd built her career on Emma's conviction, held a press conference. She expressed concern about the new developments and promised to review the case. She never admitted wrongdoing. Douglas Brennan filed an emergency motion for Emma's release. With Thomas's recorded confession, Winters's arrest, and the suppressed evidence now public, the motion was granted within 48 hours. Emma Calloway walked out of the juvenile detention facility on a cold November morning. She was 15 years old. She'd spent 3 years and 1 month behind bars for a murder she didn't commit. Aaron was there when she was released. So was her mother, Linda, sober for the first time in years. Emma looked small in the oversized clothes they'd given her. She blinked in the sunlight like she'd forgotten what it felt like. Linda approached hesitantly. "Emma, baby, I'm so sorry." Emma didn't move, didn't speak. Linda started crying. "I should have believed. You. I should have fought for you. I'm so sorry." Emma's face remained expressionless. Then slowly she stepped forward and let her mother embrace her. She didn't cry. She didn't smile. But she held on. Aaron watched from a distance, his throat tight. This should have felt like victory. Like justice. But it didn't. Because 3 years had been stolen from Emma. 3 years of childhood, of school dances and first crushes and lazy summer days. 3 years of freedom. And no one could give that back. 2 months later, Aaron's documentary premiered. It was called The Girl Who Couldn't Speak. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Outrage at the system that had failed Emma. Calls for reform. Demands for accountability. Judge Winters was convicted and sentenced to life without parole. Detective Kovacs received 20 years. Several others connected to the gambling operation faced charges. Victoria Hale quietly resigned and moved out of state. The state of California issued a formal apology to Emma Calloway and awarded her a settlement of $2.8 million in compensation. It wasn't enough. It could never be enough. But it was something. Aaron visited Emma 6 months after her release. She was living with her mother in a small apartment, attending online high school, seeing a therapist twice a week. She looked healthier, still quiet, still guarded. But there was something in her eyes that hadn't been there before. Not hope exactly, but possibility. They sat on her apartment's small balcony drinking lemonade. "Thank you," Emma said finally, "for believing me when no one else did. I'm sorry it took so long. You came. That's more than most people did." She was quiet for a moment. "Do you think I'll ever feel normal again?" Aaron considered his answer. Carefully. "I don't know. What happened to you was traumatic, unfair, and the scars from that don't just disappear. But I think you're stronger than you realize. And I think you'll find a way forward." Emma nodded slowly. "My therapist says the same thing. Smart therapist." They sat in a comfortable silence for a while. "What will you do now?" Emma asked. "Keep telling stories, keep fighting for people the system forgot. Like me. Like you." Emma managed a small smile. It was the first one Aaron had ever seen from her. "I'm going to be okay," she said. It sounded like she was trying to convince herself. "Eventually." "Yes," Aaron said. "You are." Aaron's documentary ended with a title card. "There is no such thing as perfect justice. Only the justice we fight for." Emma Calloway was innocent, but she lost 3 years of her life because people in power chose convenience over truth. This is her story, but it's also the story of everyone who stays silent when they should speak, everyone who looks away when they should see, everyone who chooses comfort over courage. Justice isn't automatic. It's earned, and it requires all of us to care enough to demand it. And below that, Emma Calloway is now 17 years old. She lives with her mother and is working toward her high school diploma. She hopes to study criminal justice reform in college. When asked what she wants people to learn from her story, she said, "Listen to the people no one else listens to. Sometimes they're telling the truth." The screen faded to black.